Nation. We're back.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rock.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon, y'all.
Yes, welcome back. All right, we are in Nashville. This is our Airbnb. So we didn't know what our schedule was going to be when we were coming and going. So we're like, the easiest thing to do is get there, set up our spot, and just record from here.
Yep.
Because a lot's happening in Nashville this weekend.
Yeah, we've been running around pretty crazy. You flew in yesterday. I drove up starting Wednesday night and just taking my sweet time getting up here. But it's been good. It's been a fun trip so far. We, of course, at my begging, we tried to check out the Bluebird Cafe. Famous little cafe, if you guys aren't familiar with it. It's launched a ton of careers. A lot of famous people go and sing there.
It's actually a tiny little spot inside a shopping center next to a salon and like a cleaners.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be really famous.
But yeah, we went there without tickets just to try to check it out. Waited in line for a bit. Didn't end up getting in, but that's okay. We found a really cool little pub, the Corner Pub.
Well, let's talk about the Bluebird Cafe. They have this really, you have to know the system of on a Thursday you can buy the tickets the previous Thursday, but on Friday you have to buy them on a Monday. There's a system that explains it on the website, but I didn't know. So when I went to buy tickets for Thursday, they had been gone since last week.
Yeah.
But they say that they save a couple of spots. They can squeeze in a couple extra people if you get in line.
Yeah.
So we were in line an hour before the doors open, and forget it. We were way down the line. We weren't getting in, but that's fine. We hung out and waited to see where we're going to get in. Nope. So then we ended up across the street, and that was great.
It was good though. I will say this. So at the Corner Pub, which was cool, it was like a great little sports bar. That was my first experience with Nashville, like hot chicken.
I love Nashville.
It was tasty, but at that Corner Pub, what they called hot, like they had a disclaimer. Like I was fully ready because they had this disclaimer on that was like, look, it says hot in the name. No refunds on this. Like you can't get it back. It's hot. I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
That sounds good. And we all wanted it. It was Mia, Stevie, me, and you. We're like, oh, well, we're from Texas. We can eat some hot food.
And he was like, even we ordered it. He's like, you sure? And we're like, yeah, we're fine. We can handle it. So we get it. And I mean, it was good flavor.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have even called that mild.
It
was not hot at all.
It was mild. It was mild. It was at least mild.
It was like,
because it had some flavor.
I don't know. I would have called it mild for like.
I would not call it hot.
I would have called it mild for an Englishman's palate, right? Like somebody that's used to like bread and beans. And they're like, oh yeah, that's hot. I didn't think it was.
And it was just, we posted a picture last night, but it said chicken, it said chunks, but they were more like little tendery bits.
Yeah.
And it was chicken over a bed of fries. And then we got tots, and we're like, can you put chili and cheese on those tots?
Yeah, it was good.
And then we got fried pickles, and I have to say the fried pickles are too thin. Like you want big crunchy pickle or fried pickles, they're fine.
We're picky about our fat kid food.
I mean, if I'm gonna eat the calories, let me eat the calories.
Right. That's right.
But they did have nice margaritas, and we hung out. They did the TV, so we got to watch the end of the NFL game. So we got to see some Jay Witt, even though he wasn't. I don't know why we didn't see him actually.
We didn't see him much play,
And then we got to watch the end of some of the college football games. We still had a good time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. But the weather here is beautiful. It's pretty much what's happening in Austin right now.
Yeah.
Gorgeous weekend.
I feel like every time I leave Austin, the weather just gets gorgeous. Like I left for Michigan, and all of a sudden we had this like nice, cool weather in Austin.
It was beautiful.
But I will say today we went to Hattie B's. And that was legit.
Yeah. So here's a little video of what we ate. So this is going in. They saved the 69 card because people will steal it. So we had the pimento mac and cheese. We each got that. These drinks are strawberry whiskey lemonade, frozen lemonade with whiskey, and then they have the what do you call it, the cornhole things. And then my sandwich was loaded with pimento cheese and coleslaw and spiced chicken. I got the hot. It was medium. Yeah, it wasn't hot. It was medium. I got
damn hot, which is like the second,
which would have been more like a little medium plus.
Yeah,
it started to build heat. You said as the more you eat. That's what I said when you took the first bite. You're like, is it hot? And I'm like, no, but let's see if it builds. And it got warmer as I went, but it never got hot.
I think our Texas palates are a little different than most people.
Yeah, but I also didn't want to just go right in and be like, can I get super extreme damn hot? Because you never know. because to somebody else that's like burn your face off, and I'm
Right.
not trying to burn my face off, but I want some meat.
Yeah.
But it was a good.
Yeah, it was
sandwich.
good. It was good. Hattie B's was really good.
Sandwich. You took all the rest of yours to go. I ate all my food. And then, so this morning though, we found a flea market. So in our Airbnb, they have a list on the board of things to do here in town, like this cool chalkboard. And down at the bottom, it said Nashville Flea Market. And I said, oh, it's a Friday.
And that's your
maybe
jam.
that's my jam.
Yeah.
I love to go dig through crap. And so we're like, okay, well, let's see. And it turns out, oh, this flea market is only once a month. It's this weekend.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, it was huge. It was crazy.
It was huge. It kept going and going.
Several warehouses worth of stuff.
Yeah. So I put together like this quick little video. You can see massive amounts of Christmas stuff, toys, beads, clothes, tons of clothes, with scarves, hats, lots of fun jewelry.
Yeah.
Things, people, lots of little custom craft things. Everything and it went from outside, inside. We
even found, of course, there was a lot of the wrong color orange there, right?
Yeah,
a lot of the wrong color orange.
But we got lots of compliments on our orange.
We did, and I have to say, we did find a Texas like sweatshirt in there, little beat up, and they wanted like $40 for it at a flea market. We're like, nah, we're good.
I
thought
for sure here and I would find like Tennessee Titans stuff. And
you did.
There was some stuff, but. Like you said, an old ratty sweatshirt, $40.
Yeah, like that's a bit much at a flea market.
No, I can buy it brand new online for $40. Why would I pay that much for an old one that's like faded off letters?
Right.
Yeah, we don't. It was, but we did find lots of neat little things. We found some cool orange sunglasses. We found little bits of jewelry pieces.
It was good,
and we made some new friends just walking around. It was nice.
I will say, and I'm encouraged by this going into the game tomorrow. Folks have been really friendly.
Very nice.
We had a couple people come up to us when we were at Corner Pub last night, and they were like, "Hey man, welcome to Nashville. Hope you have a great time here. You know, we're looking forward to having y'all." We actually had an Auburn fan come up and come on, beat Vandy, and they're getting a little big for their britches or whatever. But it's been cool. People have been really friendly. Like I will say this for those of you that haven't been to Nashville before, like it's very much. So far to me is like an old school Austin vibe.
It feels like Austin,
you know, like it's music centric. There's a lot of nice people here, a lot to do, but it's super laid back. Like you can go in anywhere in flip flops and jeans and feel comfortable for the most part.
So much like Austin, but you know, the country vibe, but still very city.
Yeah.
And college town and just everything's kind of spread out, but there's pockets of fun, neat things. Very international. We saw like in our neighborhood, there's like an Ethiopian restaurant. There's a salsa Mexican bar.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
There's like all these different things all within a block. So it's very like international for, you know, it's a big city. I love Nashville. Yeah, so we're excited. This afternoon we're going to
hit Broadway. And then we'll probably do Music City Row or Music Row. And then, of course, we'll meet some friends later. We're going to go line dancing.
Yeah, go and line dancing.
Got to do it.
And if
show them how Texans do it.
If we get there by 7:30, they'll actually teach us the line dancing.
Right.
So we have a group of friends going line dancing, and they gave us like, here's a list of songs, got to practice them. They are hard. Like you have to really be practicing them. So I think I learned one.
I'll drink.
That I might have forgotten. And it was actually a pit bull. Pit bull has a line dance.
That's, again, right up your alley.
Yeah, I was like, I can learn the pit bull one. And they move so fast. And then some of the line dances have like, you do one 32 count a few times, and then the chorus has a different 32 count. Then you got to come back to 32 count. And if I practice them all the time, I would know them. But you have to learn them all at one time.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So so let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at going into this game. I will say Texas on a little bit of a down streak, right? We've got
just a little bit.
You know, we'll talk about volleyball here in a minute. I will say this. You know, volleyball avenged the loss for football because Texas played Georgia at home in Austin the Sunday following the big game in Austin. And volleyball came out victorious there. That was great. Felt a little bit better after that rough loss against Georgia. And then, of course, the big rivalry came up, A&M in town at Texas. Texas on a hot streak for volleyball. Hadn't had a problem. They've been closing things out.
7-0.
Yeah, hadn't lost the SEC. Hadn't lost at home in conference play since something like 2014. So the Aggies come into town. And goodness gracious, it was down to the wire.
They went to the fifth set.
Yeah, give the Aggies credit. And the fifth set went beyond 15.
And don't drink every time they say Led Nikki. Don't drink every time they say her name because you would have been in a coma after the first set. Yeah. Those announcers love them some Led Nikki.
And something I will say for Texas volleyball, that became really apparent in this game. I mean, Texas is deep. And we know that Coach Elliott has said this is one of the deepest teams that he's played or that he's had at Texas. He really likes the team he's got. He really likes the rotations and the depth of this team. And A&M was kind of the opposite of that, right? They had one player, but my God, they used her consistently.
She was a superstar.
They used her well. So, I'll give props where it's due. Congratulations to A&M, handing Texas their first conference home loss since 2014.
At home.
At home, yeah. So that Lone Star Trophy resides in College Station right now until the next meeting. So Aggie's on a little bit of a hot streak against Texas with softball coming out victorious. And then, of course, volleyball pulling that nail biter out in Austin. So,
okay, many people.
It has been all.
Look, I will say
many
this.
People are saying we should blame that guy.
I will say this, man. I love the vibe.
It has been all.
He went viral during the Georgia game for that.
Yeah, I have it right here. Let's see.
Oh, wait. Can you say hi to my friends? I want to show them the angry Texas fans.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. This is my high school Spanish group chat.
So, yeah, look, man, I love the hair. I love the vibe. Appreciate the support. Appreciate that he's here. I'm kind of doing
We want him at every game.
Look, here we go.
Want him at every game.
I
He's
kind of
diehard Longhorn.
kind of rocking the big hair vibe, right?
We want him,
But maybe it's time to cut it. He has been, I will say, he was at volleyball as well. And so right now he's 0-2 since going viral. And again, man, show up, support the team, but maybe it's time to clip that a little bit, change the do-up.
He went
change the juju.
Viral.
Yeah.
Viral. So the last thing we had go viral was that boom, I bring the boom. Okay, Georgia brought the boom, so we're done with that one. And now we have big hair guy, and we think we might be done with that one.
Well, now,
we love him.
Yeah.
We love him. Might just be time to cut the hair.
Yeah.
We love his energy.
And again, I will say this, like, appreciate him there. I'm here for it. And he did mention, even after he went viral during the Georgia game, that he was talking about maybe cutting it, getting McConaughey to cut his hair. He's like, I've seen McConaughey cut the guy's hair, the basketball team's hair. Maybe he can cut mine to raise cancer awareness. And I'm like, you know what? For a good cause and fix the juju, let's be in for that. So let's start a movement behind getting McConaughey to clip this kid's hair.
Yeah,
and
that'd be fun.
Raise some cancer awareness, but also maybe flip the script on his record so far.
Yeah.
So
all right, so we have some comments. Let's check in. Thanks, you guys, like and subscribe. Okay, hey Jesse, afternoon. How's the weather? The weather here is gorgeous.
Yeah.
What is it? 83 degrees right now.
Yeah.
Not a cloud in the sky. We went and sat outside and had a beautiful breezy lunch.
Yeah.
The weather is good. Cody C, our buddy Hookem. All right, let's effing go. Here we go. Billy the Kid. Thank you. Get your horns up. Yes. Tracy Kennedy, let's go.
Trisha, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Trisha Kennedy.
Good to see you, girl.
Sorry. Thank you, Trisha. I'll be flying out tonight. Hey, Jesse, you'll be on your way. All right, let's go. It's your new drinking game. Every time they say "Let Nikki."
Yeah, I'm telling you would have been dead by the second set. It was rough for sure. So.
All right. Yep. Skinner is the best in the nation. It's just the game didn't go their way. Good thing the crowd was in. There was, of course, another sold out game. Everything was going their way. Yeah. They fought so hard. The ending of the first set was wild with that review of the step on the line, the 10-foot line thing, and then Texas took the first set, and here comes Aggie's biggest win of a set in forever. Like it was a drama game. It was a drama game.
It was. Yes. But I feel like, man, if anything, it just reaffirms that the rivalry is back, right? I don't care what Longhorn fans say. I don't care what Aggie fans say. The fan bases have been hungry for this rivalry to come back.
Yeah.
And you can see that in everything, every matchup that's happened.
The players are hungry. Look how hard they fought in that game.
And you can see that in every matchup that's happened since the announcement that Texas was returning to the SEC. So yeah, a lot to play for, a lot of pride on the line for sure. So it's gonna be crazy. Any matchup between Texas and Texas A&M is gonna be nuts. And on that note, we were looking at prices, right, for the game later on in the football season. Of course, Texas finishing out the regular season in College Station. Right now, those tickets are going for about $900 in the end zone, and that's before friggin' $350 in fees. That's highway robbery. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It is absolutely nuts how crazy this is going. So yeah, I love it. So you guys tell us in the comments, are you excited to play A&M again consistently and over a bunch of different sports? You guys happy for it?
Hey, Jesse says, yes, I'm glad it's back also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely heated online with the social media posts. And I just thought you know, because I was telling Richard, I'm like, because we're watching the volleyball, we can't lose to the Aggies at home. You don't understand. And he's like, it's volleyball, it happens, you know. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
It doesn't for
in
Texas.
Volleyball too, at home volleyball, like undefeated in the SEC, all the things, and at home, my heart breaks for them. But like you said, give it to the Aggies. They balled out.
Well, in Texas, and we play A&M again, so there will be redemption. It'll be all right. It'll be a good time. So yeah, like I said, let us know in the comments. Are you excited to play A&M again? Are you tired of them?
Hell yeah.
See, I'm in that camp. I said that.
Trisha says absolutely.
I thought for sure, you know, I'm glad we took a little bit of cooling off period, right? Like when you break up with somebody and they're talking a lot of shit about you after your breakup, I don't really want to see you again for a hot minute. But I think there's been enough of a cooling off period. I'm excited for this to come back because all it's been is like Twitter fights and wrist slapping online about who's the better team. Well, let's prove it. Put up or shut up. Let's prove it. So again, Aggies on a hot streak. I'm going to give them some credit here, but Texas will be back. I have confidence in that.
All right, our buddy Ghost. Hell yeah, bring that shit on.
Appreciate that. Woo! I love it. I love that attitude. Yeah, 12 years, man. It's been long enough. I think it's been long enough. We've all been stewing over it a bit. Aggie's been sitting on that L from that Tucker handed them. So, you know,
man.
Did you see that news story that somebody said on Twitter that my aunt woke up from a 13-year coma?
Yeah.
And I loved it. Our buddy Doc Allen.
The comments in that thing were amazing.
So good. Our buddy Doc Allen said, "Oh, hey, tell her that Justin Tucker is still kicking and the Aggies still haven't beat Texas in football." So I gotta love it.
I mean, let's sway a little bit, like detour for just a second. About you made the comment about my aunt just woke up from a 13-year coma. Can you imagine waking up from a 13-year coma?
No.
And hearing all the things that have happened in the last 13
Would you want to wake up to that?
No, but I'm saying even just like good and bad, like all the crazy shit that's happened in the world, like the new technologies, like all the things like
COVID as I
like, you know, you can talk to your phone now. Remember when we were kids, we wished we could talk to my phone, and now I see it, I'm dismissed. Like we wish we could video call people. Now we're like dismissed.
Hold up though. Like iPhones were still a thing 13 years ago.
No, but I'm saying like all the things we could do in the last 13 years.
Yeah,
just so advanced and so crazy.
I like that you're taking that spin on it. I look at it, I'm like, dang, like there's just some crazy things. I don't know that I'd be able to manage wrapping my head around how much you've missed. It's like the
13 years.
It's like the blip in Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Like the blip, everybody's gone, and then all of a sudden you're back. You're like, oh crap, now I got to catch up with everything.
Yeah,
kind of crazy.
There's so much. All right. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, of course, we are in Nashville. If you missed the beginning, this is our Airbnb. This is a Nashville flag, I hope.
No, Tennessee.
I'm sorry, Tennessee. That's what I
flag.
meant. That's what I meant. This is a Tennessee flag, I hope.
State flag. It is. It's a state flag. It's a Tennessee. I will say this though. Let me give and y'all. This is going to be a really fun show because Rocky has been cracking herself up.
I'm making myself
literally
laugh
the entire time we've been here. It's been delightful. Like your laugh makes me smile.
Oh man, we have
the
to
fact
tell
that you're cracking yourself up the whole time. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. But yeah, that's fair, Cody. You said in the past 13 years, you'd missed a lot of Texas football misery.
Yeah, don't worry. Tell them we're still number one.
Don't worry about that.
We always go to the
right.
champions every year.
I will give, so the Airbnb we're in is pretty cool. It's like an old, I'd be willing to bet this house was probably built 1920s.
20s, 30s, yeah.
Super cool. They've kept a lot of the original stuff, like the crystal doorknobs and things like that.
That fall off when you,
it's an old house. It's an old house. It's cool though. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You can see, I don't know which way I need to lean, but we got our buddy back here. Have we named him yet?
No, I didn't even know he was there until you just said it.
Yeah, I feel like
in the shot.
I love that you're so used to dead animals hanging around my place.
I didn't
horns and all the stuff that you
I didn't even notice.
The giant deer.
When I get into an Airbnb, where's the Wi-Fi? How are we going to make coffee in the morning?
That's funny.
Other than that, I'm fine.
That's funny. All right. Well, yeah, we will talk about it. So we know that Texas is coming off a pretty rough loss against Georgia. A lot of hype around Texas, number one team in the nation. Nobody really, I shouldn't say nobody, but I think a lot of people were expecting Texas to win this one. Excuse me, Texas was favored. On College Game Day, it was across the board Texas.
Most national people picked Texas, most of them, to win at home. People thought Quinn would have the big bounce back after, the struggling against Oklahoma, looking rough. People thought he was going to have the big bounce back, and it did not go that way.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about what Texas needs to do What are some keys to the game? And can Vandy pull an upset again? I mean, listen, in Nashville, the vibes are high, y'all. Like we've been talking to folks, like we mentioned a little earlier, some other teams fans are saying, man, they're getting a little big for their britches. They're real excited around here. They're having a good season. And look,
good. They should be right now.
Yeah, look, credit where it's due. I'm never going to knock a team. I won't knock most teams for having
confidence.
Yeah,
they should. They have probably the best quarterback in the SEC right now.
Yeah, I think
we'll talk about it.
That's a valid argument to make. So I think it's going to be good. This really is an opportunity for Texas to come in and show that we are a good team to kind of get back on track. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about the mindset of the team right now. We know that it was a pretty big letdown, right? I think there was some expectation. Let me ask you this, Rocky. Do you feel the team bought into the rat poison a little bit with everybody hyping up Georgia or Texas against Georgia? Is this a case of mentality? Like, because we know Texas is talented. Is this something that maybe the team just got a little bit too much on social media, bought into that rat poison a bit too much?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think they come out not wanting to play or not taking Georgia seriously. I just think Georgia came out with Georgia came out with a solid plan, confused and executed. And that's what it's all about. Sark talks about this all the time. You have to execute the plans. Georgia, especially on defense, maybe not so much. They often did enough, right, to pull away and get a lead in the first half that Texas couldn't overcome, 23-0, right? But they did enough. And they had, granted, they had short field. The defense gave it to them, and they took advantage. At the same time, the defense gave Texas turnovers. The defense gave offense turnovers that the offense couldn't take advantage of.
Yeah.
So taking advantage of turnovers, especially on the road, Georgia did. Texas couldn't do it at home. That's what they always say. You have a plan so you get punched in the mouth, right? Texas got punched in the mouth and couldn't respond quickly enough.
Yeah.
When they finally did and got a fight back in, and granted, they didn't quit. They were in it and they were fighting to the end. Defense did it, like we talked about on Monday. Defense did enough to hold and keep them in the game, right? But it was, I wouldn't say that they were like, oh, they were so distracted with social media or number one ranking or anything. I just am going to give the credit to Georgia for coming in and
the chip on the shoulder. The chip on the shoulder.
Right?
Yeah, the chip on the shoulder was bigger than buying into the rat poison. I can see that for sure. So let's talk about this a little bit. Like, this was problematic. And again, like we did on our show a couple days ago, I'm going to give a ton of credit to the Texas defense here.
Right.
If it weren't for Texas defense and the way that they played this out, there is absolutely no way Texas would have been in this game at all. And the defense held on and they held on and they held on. They did what they needed to do. Now, I will say this, there were a few critical drives, especially towards the end, because it is lopsided as this score looks. It's a 2-score game.
30-15.
Right. The game was actually, like, it felt kind of distanced throughout when you were there in person, but in reality, the game was a lot closer. I mean, you're talking midway through the fourth quarter. This is still a very winnable game for Texas. Yeah. So I will say that the defense did a great job. They held up when they needed to until the very end. And that is really where you saw the difference and I don't want to say they ran out of steam, but man, they had done everything they could. And again, special teams and the offense wasn't doing the defense any favors in that game against Georgia. Again, unfortunately, we talk about this complimentary football all the time. And up until last weekend, Texas had been playing some pretty good complimentary football. We just didn't see that this past game. You had mentioned a little bit earlier, and I want to really emphasize this because this is a massive number to me.
Okay.
So again, I want to talk about the yardage gained on Georgia's scoring drives against Texas. So this is just on the scoring drives, right? Touchdown, 13 yards. That's all it needed. Field goal, 13 yards. Touchdown, 34 yards. Field goal, 25 yards. Field goal, 4 yards. The only points that Georgia really had to work for was towards the end of the game, a touchdown for 89 yards.
Again, and by then the defense is exhausted and has to get off. Yeah, can't get off the field.
They're kind of gassed at that point. So one drive that spanned more than 35 yards. That to me is just something that
gifting a lot.
Yeah. And for Texas to really be in it, a game like that, for Texas to really be in it right up until the end, till about probably 7-8 minutes left in the game, that speaks high volumes of the defense. They held up well despite these turnovers. Now, we've talked about it. We'll talk a little bit more about the offense in a minute, but I do want to point this out because I don't feel like this is being talked about enough with Texas. Yes, a lot of this was due to turnovers. A lot of this was just, it wasn't smart play, turnovers on downs. The offense couldn't get going. But something that concerns me, Rocky, is our special teams. They worry me.
Yeah,
They
they're not
worry
helping the
me.
field position game, just like the offense in this game didn't help the field position game.
Right. And I feel like that's been something that, because Texas has played complementary football up until last weekend, we haven't noticed as much. But Texas is struggling a lot with that field position battle. We're not quite getting there. And again, we've got a young punter right now. I understand that. Like, again, we're dealing with injury a little bit. So we're not quite where we hoped we would
Michael
be.
Kern is not on the injured list.
Well, he might have gotten benched. He got injured,
Yeah,
remember?
yeah.
And then he was listed as probable, and then he didn't, and he's still holding now. He's still holding, but it's a little concerning for me, not just with the distance that we're getting with our kicks, but also the return game. There's been that lack of the explosive play, that lack
There's been
of
a moment or two, but nothing consistent.
Yeah. And of course, we saw this once again, Texas kind of shooting themselves in the foot in this past game. When we finally had that explosive play, when we finally had that huge return, it gets called back because of
holding or block in the back.
Right, the block in the back.
Yeah.
So, Texas certainly did not do themselves any favors against Georgia, both on special teams or on the offense. So let's talk about this a little bit. What is the mindset of the team? What do you think is going on?
All right. So let's take it from when Sark post game of that game. He mentioned about the players that by the time he got there, like the players were already addressing each other. So we know we have some leadership.
Yeah.
Let's watch where Sark talked about
I liked our leadership in the locker room. Even before I went in there to speak, I could hear a few of our leaders speaking up.
David Benda, for sure, just kind of taking on that maturity leadership role. Immediately said, we've been in this position before.
I just felt like it had to be said, and just a message of positivity. This wasn't going to define our season. We left a lot out there, and I just wanted the team to know that we still have everything in front of us. We just need to keep on working day in and day out.
Yeah, look, I mad props to Benda. He's one of those. Again, Texas has done really well on defense, so it's hard to talk about everybody all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple guys not getting their flowers as much as I think maybe they should. Benda's one of them.
Right.
Benda has really developed into such a team leader and a person that is there to uplift the guys. You heard him talking about it here. Let me inject some positivity here because, we know as much as we like to bitch as fans, as much as we like to talk about this as a fan base, and I think there's still some UTSD here going on, right? We go from Texas and #1, we're great, we're going to win an Addy, and now one loss, and a lot of fans are going, oh God, it's over.
And we'll talk about that, but I didn't see that at all.
No, I saw it.
No, I don't feel that way at all.
I don't either. But I saw it from some fans going, oh God, Texas. It was quick to go back to the doom and gloom, which I want to remind Texas fans, we're still favored. We're still the top favorite to make the SEC championship. Texas is fully in control of their destiny right now. But I appreciate to hear Benda coming in and saying, look, we needed to inject some positivity because the guys took this hard. They took this serious. We know that Texas, and we talk about culture all the time, we know that this team is fully equipped to be able to say, okay, let's look at what we did. Let's take this loss. We took one square on the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at what we can do and move forward. And I really appreciate senior leaders like Benda coming in and saying, yeah, man, we're going to do this. We're going to figure it out and we're going to move on. We're not going to get down on ourselves. I really do appreciate that. I think that's something that's maybe not as recognized as it should be, because as we've gone through this past week, I've heard multiple players talk about the influence that Benda has had. So again, props to him. I really appreciate what he's doing for the team and things that he's saying.
Right. Especially with, Lafau and Hill, like his affecting his playing time in that rotation.
Yeah.
It's still to be such a vocal leader and the team to rely on him, knowing what he contributes. He like Stark always talks about, don't count your reps, make your reps count.
Yeah.
I think Benda is absolutely an example of that the team still looks to him for leadership, even if his reps are, getting bitten into a bit by the young ones coming up.
Sure.
So that's I think the mindset, this is when it's going to come back to the culture, like the year, not just over this season, but the years of building this culture and the leadership, bringing up the young ones into that culture. This is where, and this, let's bring this up again, because we played this the other day, but man, it's so good. Taft talking about that 6th round, the 6th, when Sark said it's better to be knocked down in the 6th round and get up than to be knocked out in the 12th round. And here's Taft talking.
What I'll say about that, good question. What I'll say about that is champions never have a clean face. Muhammad Ali never walked out of a fight looking all pretty faced. He always had a bump or a bruise on his face. He always had a bloody nose or a black eye. But everybody knows Muhammad Ali was one of the best fighters to ever walk on this planet. And so to be a champion, you're going to get knocked in the mouth a couple of times. How are you going to respond? How are you going to stand up? Coach Sark said it this morning, I'd rather get knocked out round 6 and get up and win in round 12 than get knocked out in round 12. So that's all I'll say to that question.
He got it kind of twisted a little bit, but we know what he meant. Like Sark said, it's better to get knocked down in round 6 and get up than to be knocked down in round 12. And like I said, this is only round 6, right? They got punched in the mouth, right? They got punched in the mouth, but like we said, they have everything ahead of them, and it's how they respond that matters. And this is where the culture is going to shine through. If they're lifting each other up, back to the drawing board, getting back to work.
Yeah. All right. I love this, Cody. Your comment about Benda. Benda had to start with a silent G because 100% a G. Heck yeah, I like that. That needs. I feel like he needs that message too. No, I love it. All right, so let's talk a little bit moving forward. Right, we're in Nashville. We're looking forward to the game. We do know there are some things for Texas to fix, to be sure. So let's start at that. Like, let's take a look. What are some things that Texas has to work on to be successful moving forward?
Right. So when we watched the game live, in the stadium, it kind of felt like our O-line is supposed to be one of the best in the country, and it felt like they weren't holding up their end in this game. But then we listened to more experts who have experience with the offensive line, really go back and watch the game, and it wasn't the offensive line, right? They still graded well. It wasn't all the offensive line. They could have played better, but it wasn't, we can't blame the offensive line. There were decisions that Quinn wasn't making. We talked about this, stepping up into the pocket. What is it? Is it injury? Is he still hurt, or is he still worried because he was hurt? Like, we don't know why he's gone from, like, the way he was wheeling and dealing up in the pocket at Michigan, and then to see the regression. He came back for Oklahoma and it didn't look right, but that's okay because he just came back from injury and he was rusty after 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it was. And then we see it not just again, but I would say it was even more regression. The things that only because we've seen him play so well and so elite and just slice and dice at the highest level, at Alabama, Big 12 championship game, at Michigan, against NFL defensive players, right?
Yeah.
So that's what worries me is we're going to trust Sark and Milwee, their development, this is why I trust Sark's decision. If he keeps going with Quinn and he has a plan for Quinn and he's going to develop him, put him in there, I trust that, because when Sark talks about developing student athletes and especially quarterbacks, he understands. He talks about this all the time, that when the quarterback does great, everything gets all the praise. When they do bad, when the team doesn't do well, the quarterback gets all the blame. Right. He understands the mental aspect of being a quarterback. He played quarterback, in college. He's coached. He's been in the NFL around the most elite quarterbacks. He understands you have to be a total athlete, mind, body, emotional health. So he understands that if there is something that injury or whatever it is that's slowing Quinn down from stepping back up and picking up where he left off, because he hasn't, if I trust Sark to be the one that's developing the whole athlete again.
Yeah.
So if he's going to come back, Sark will definitely be the one that helps it.
Yeah, I'd like to address that a little bit. We know that Sark is 100% a quarterback developer.
Yes.
If there is one area that I'm absolutely not concerned about our coaching, it's in the quarterback.
I mean, the
area.
Mannings trust him.
Yeah, look. So I want to say that there's a couple things I want to address with what you were saying. I agree with you. Look, we talked about this a little bit earlier, that Texas was not playing complementary football, which typically means between your offense and defense, is everything kind of jiving, playing well together. But I think that even goes deeper within the offense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I appreciate where you're coming from, talking about the O-line, and it wasn't quite as bad as we felt it was during the game. But I'm not going to completely absolve them of everything.
No.
And I will say Georgia had some beasts back there, right? I understand that there was certainly a a push. But the O-line has not looked like the O-line we've seen in every single game up until this point.
Right.
Now, I will concede, no question, Quinn's play played into that. There were multiple opportunities, again, like you talked about, when we went and rewatched the game, looked at it again, there were multiple opportunities where Quinn was not stepping into the pocket. And part of that, I feel, is because of that O-line play. He had been gotten to a couple times. He kind of got happy feet. He wouldn't get set. He wouldn't step into the pocket. He didn't have any pocket presence in this past game. Part of that was because the O-line, there were some holes there. Their lines were just pushing us around a little bit. But to that point as well, Quinn wasn't stepping up. He wasn't making fast decisions. And I think one of the most damaging things that we saw as far as his decision-making ability in the Georgia game was there were multiple deep balls available. They schemed well in this game. It looked really good. There were multiple opportunities where Quinn had guys wide open deep and in that mid-level pass, right? And he was just very quick. He either wasn't seeing them or was maybe he's a little hurt and he's still hesitant to chuck them long, or he just was quick to check down, because that's what we're seeing more and more. And to me, this is a little bit of a concerning trend. I'm not worried about it per se yet, but it's something to keep an eye on. Certainly the length of passes, the average pass for Quinn has been dropping quite a bit. And we saw that kind of come to a head at the Georgia game. Instead of looking for that long ball, when he had a clearly open guy, we know that in the past, Quinn used to force that ball in and go to the long ball first without checking down. Now it feels to me like that pendulum is swung a little too far.
Too conservative, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about the career average depth of his target, right?
Okay. And we have it on the screen.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We do. So in 2022, we're talking 10.5 yards. 2023, 8.4.
Average depth of target.
Right. 2024, 6.1. So you see that dropping. And look, I'm not opposed to a player making smarter passes, to checking down and throwing to the guys that are open, that are available. Play smart football. Let's get those percentages up. Let's make some, if you can take out 3, 4, 5 yards at a time consistently, that's great. But when you're not even considering the long ball, when you're missing guys that are completely wide open deep, that to me is something that's going to change, because Texas, this game could have been very different for Texas with a few explosive plays, and not looking for that long ball at all, or just missing the guys that are wide open with very passable, very attainable passes. That to me, you're not going to get those explosive plays. And that's going to be a night and day difference for how this Texas offense performs.
I think too, like a small factor in why this yards per depth per target has gone down too is we're going from a roster where everyone was so focused on Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. And now Texas has all this speed, right? They have all this speed in the receiver position, and Sark now can scheme people open more. Like these receivers can be schemed open and they're wide open, right? So whether or not Quinn is missing them lately, that's one thing. But also when he does connect, he doesn't have to connect 40 yards down the field to get a 40-yard play, right?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
He can connect 7 or 8 or 9 yards down the field, and the receiver breaks a few tackles because they're in open space, right? So I think that's probably a combination of both of them. I would want to see, like, overall, if people are wide open, is that the intended play, or is that just to spread and stretch the defense, right? And leave the space open for the middle stuff, because Quinn isn't as consistent in the deep pass. So just because someone went out for it doesn't necessarily mean that was the first choice. And it could be just more scheme to stretch defense so that the shorter mid-range routes have more space.
Yeah.
Because they're wide open in the mid-range.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. But what I would argue is, if you're never going to look at the deep ball, then what's the point? Who cares?
They're not going to defend it if they don't. They're going to give it to you.
Exactly. So for me, whether he has been perfect at the deep ball or not, you still have to take those shots when they are gift wrapped to you like that, and you've got a wide open player.
Yeah, take the shot.
30 yards down the field, 20 yards down the field, take the damn shot. We'll
see tomorrow what happens tomorrow, because I think Vanderbilt safeties can be had, and we'll see.
Agreed.
But we also thought that about Oklahoma, that their safeties could be had.
Yeah. So that, to me, that's a key. a big key to the game for Texas success against Vanderbilt. You've got to take those deep shots when they're available. You've got to look for those have a few explosive plays to open up the rest of your game, right? One other thing I do think that really needs to be addressed. We were talking about this earlier at lunch. For those of you that wonder, we talk like this all the time. So yeah. So we were talking about this at lunch. You know, we know that the running back room is pretty depleted for Texas. And I think that has certainly, prior to this point, that's played into the play calling, that's played into it a little bit, but we've still had production from our running backs. We've still seen Blue have some flashes of brilliance. We've still seen, we know that Contravian Wisner has stepped up. He's playing those two, again, complementary running backs that are playing really well.
Right.
They weren't on top of their game against Georgia. And I think I'm going to put this a little more on the O-line here. The O-line wasn't able to open up big gaps for the running backs. The few times that we saw it, we know that Contravian is a very patient runner. When he had the ability when the O-line would hold up just enough, he could be patient, see the hole and go, he was successful, right? Where he faltered a little last week and that he's got to improve for this game against Vanderbilt, his hands. Man, I know you're a running back, but when we're talking about these dink and dunks, if our quarterback's going to be checking down so much, you've got to catch those short pass balls. You have got to catch, you're wide open 3-4 yards out. You can't let that get away from you. You got to catch that and move on.
Yeah. The running game, of course, Georgia's front seven could be one of the best Texas will see all year, if not the best.
Agreed.
They're going to into later down the season, not to look far ahead, but they're going to face an Aggie A&M front seven that is comparable to a Georgia one, especially with that home field environment.
Crazy thing to say right now.
Give them their props. They have one of the best front sevens at A&M too. So fortunately, they can take from their experience facing Georgia and what that physicality and what it's actually like to be schemed with that kind of pressure, and they can plan ahead for going into A&M. And then if should they face Georgia again in the championship game or the playoffs, they can be prepared for that this time. Yeah. So, but yeah, it does. Like we said at the beginning of the season, when Cedric Baxter went out, my thought was that's at least a game or two, just right off the bat, like. You mean in the sense that could cost us? Yeah, not to put it on Baxter. Not that anything's his fault or whatever, but just the trickle down effect of the depth and the schemes and how much Baxter is a massive part of the entire game plan. And not that it's ever fortunate that anyone ever gets injured, but in this case, Sark did have a little bit of more time to prepare for the season when it happened a few weeks before the season. So, and we've talked about this before, but Baxter's injury, you start to really feel it because this is physical big boy football, right? So we've seen Contravian Wisner in a boot, right? And Jade they're banged up, they're beat up, and you have Jarrett Gibson, true freshman, stepping up, but he still has limited role because he's just learning and developing this really complex scheme, and they put a lot on the running backs, right? So it's just a big hole missing without Cedric Baxter. And then he, is going to be out for a while throughout spring. We don't know when he'll be back for fall ball. So it's going to be a while until this gets rolling again, the running back room. Sure. So that's going to impact the depth. It's a long season, right? Through January 20th for the best of them. So it's just really, you can't overcome like just losing the massive piece, not just depth, but the key piece of the running back room. Sure. Not to take anything away from Blue, and Wisner's been amazing in stepping up, but there's no replacing Baxter. So in my opinion, I agree with that. Like you're counting on certain pieces of your running back room to carry a lot of the workload. And I agree that Blue has really stepped up. He has that next man mentality. Saw a little bit of a ball security issues early on, but I think that's something he's certainly been working on. Right. We know that Wisner, again, love his work ethic. He has really stepped up, and there is some argument. Could he be in that RB1, right? Right. 1-2, yeah. But to your point and I wouldn't just say that it's Baxter being out. We're seeing that Baxter's out, Christian Clark is out, Belton Gardner's out. It's not just they brought in Gardner for depth and then he's out within it. Right. And so, and again, like you mentioned, we saw Wisner in a boot. He is listed as probable right now, but with a little bit banged up. Now again, it's mid-season. No football team is making it through, certainly not in the SEC, without being a little banged up, a little bruised,
mid-season. But that will affect play calling. That will affect, Texas's ability to move the ball, to be a two-dimensional team. So what does Texas need to do? What are you looking forward to from the play calling? And what are some keys that Texas offense needs to do to have some success against Vanderbilt here?
First and foremost, I would like Quinn to be tall in the pocket. I want some confidence because, like Sark always says, how the QB goes, the team goes, right? The offense goes. So if Quinn is playing with more confidence, that will trickle down to everyone else. I would love to see Quinn step up and be a confident leader of that offense. And I will be looking at his body language. And lately the body language hasn't been as positive as when he was pumping his chest in Bama, right? So at Bama. So I would like to see that, his body language, confident leadership. I don't want to, because where we sit in the game, we can see a lot of when he comes to sit down on the bench. And I have some photos, I'll share them later maybe, but he's down in the bench.
Yeah. And I will say
not hanging his head, but
it's a different
just a different body language. And I would love to see a lot of confidence. I want him to go and step up. On the road, he does great. So let's go see on the road. We know this team loves a true road game. But is this really a true road game if they say 90% is going to be Texas fans?
Well,
but it's on the road and they're in their icy whites.
Yeah.
And
Vanderbilt is starting to show up.
Vanderbilt's starting to not sell all their tickets.
Yeah. So, let's talk about that a little bit with the confidence. I agree wholeheartedly. Something we saw, and Sarkisian even addressed this at the beginning. We've seen Quinn get off to a little bit of a slow start, right? Mm-hmm. And even when he's had some interceptions early, he still kind of had swagger. It was like a brush it off, no big deal.
Mm-hmm. So we felt like, brush it off.
The mentality was right. I agree. In this past game, there was a little bit of a shift there. Now I'm going to ask the question that both of us roll our eyes in, but it still needs to be discussed. We talked a little bit on our show earlier this week about Arch and him coming in. At what point in the game, where is the line? We know that, again, the team is saying, Sark is saying, the team is saying, Quinn is our guy. It is his team. He's the quarterback. But we also did see him get benched against Georgia. There is some question because when he got pulled, it was right after he got hit really hard on the side. We know that he's recovering from that oblique injury.
Did he go to the side and say, "Hey, coach, I need a minute. I'm hurting"?
Right.
We don't know.
Or was the staff being a little extra protective, saying, "Hey, you took that big hit.
Let's examine you.
Let's change this up a little bit. Also, you need to be benched." But you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it could. I don't know.
I don't want to diss on the players, but we just have to say what happened.
I'm calling it as it is.
I know what happened was he didn't play well. The team was down big. He got pulled to regroup, like Sark said, collect himself, use the halftime to plan again, and came back. And when he came back out, he was much better
after halftime. Yeah. So, but again, I mean, he was asked that question: "Did you need to sit down?" And he said, "Well, I guess I did."
I guess I did.
And again, that's a little bit different answer. So I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes here.
Always, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So for me, like you pointed out, Quinn's mentality is going to have to sharpen up for this game. He's going to have to be mentally tough. He's going to have to be that bounce back, brush shit off your shoulders. That's got to be a quick thing here. You can't let little mistakes snowball into something bigger.
Yeah.
You can't let it weigh heavy.
We've seen him do it.
Exactly.
Brush off mistakes.
We've seen that early on, and that's when he's at his best. When he's confident, when he understands, like, we're good, ain't no thing, I'm good, let's move on. That to me, look, and the team's been talking about that mentality all after the past Georgia game. Brush it off, move on, onward and upward, right? It's easy to say that, but in practice, are they going to be able to do that? So I think that's really important in this game for Texas to regroup, for Quinn to get his head right, to be there and be that confident leader. And again, that a lot of that embodies stepping up in the pocket, being more solid with your footwork, looking for your guys deep, making sure that you're ready and that if you got a wide open shot, take the damn wide open shot, right? He's got to have that confidence rather than, and again, I'm not saying take every deep ball that is a possibility. Be smart with your plays, be smart with your reads.
Make them respect it.
But make them respect it because again, when and again, when we're talking offense, our running backs are going to have to step up too. It's going to have to be complementary football on both sides, but especially within the offense, the O-line is going to have to hold up, which again, when you're comparing Vanderbilt and Georgia, look, let's just call it spade a spade. They're on different playing fields, right?
Vanderbilt's
playing well.
Has become a bit of a dragon slayer lately.
I get that, but I'm not saying that. You'd be silly to say Vandy's D-line is the same as Georgia's D-line.
No, the front sevens especially are not.
Right.
They're not the same. However, Vandy, and let's go ahead and get into it.
Sure.
Because you talked about what Quinn needs to do. Let's talk about their quarterback who's doing it, right? Pavia. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I think I've heard Pavia more.
Yeah.
So we'll go with Pavia unless someone knows it is Pavia. All right. So Pavia, he is, like Stark called him, the straw that stirs the drink.
Dang. Listen, let's call that out real quick. I appreciate that Sark has been in Texas long enough that he's starting to use phrases like he's the straw that stirs the drink. Come on, man.
Pavia is one of those players that, we've all heard his story by now, not highly recruited, took a, lower ranked team, New Mexico State, took all these teams like to winning big wins, followed his offensive coordinator to Vanderbilt. They have a system similar to Stark's, lots of motions, lots of misdirection. He will take the dink and dunk. He will take the shots when they're there. But most importantly, he is dual threat to not just physical runner, but he leads their team in rushing yards. Like, he is a threat all the time. So fortunately, like, Texas defense has had an opportunity to prepare for that. Like, they have, especially with like Hill, and LaFau was fantastic against Oklahoma when Hawkins was going to be a threat to use his feet, right? Pavia, more experienced, older, wiser, and more experienced. So he has more experience, like moving around, and can look down the field and use his feet. So fortunately, they've had a little bit of warm up of that. Carson Beck was not a threat of that, but they've had that. And then the Mississippi State quarterback, Van Buren, before that. So they've had opportunity to warm that up. So that should help coming in with the lane discipline, because if you leave one gap, he's gone.
Yeah, I agree.
He will take that gap in a split second. So he's going to get his, and the defense is going to have to regroup and be patient. Fortunately, Texas has the speed that Vanderbilt doesn't have a roster of speed on offense. So our defense should be fast enough to, if anyone does get loose, they should be fast enough to control that.
Yeah, I love what you pointed out. Discipline is going to be a big deal here for the defense. Again, for Texas, I'm not as concerned about that, right? We've seen our defense do well. They know their assignment. They understand where they're going to be. And a theme that we've talked about throughout the season, and I think is going to play an important role here, and let's dive into that a little bit, is that versatility of the players, especially on the defensive side. We've seen, so Texas plays disciplined defense. They understand where to be. They know the assignment. But something that I think has really benefited the Texas defense this year is that player versatility. It's the ability, that high football IQ, and then the ability to put our guys in different positions, in different roles, given the different needs. Want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So let's talk about like Derek Williams being out, right? So safety Derek Williams, he had that fantastic forced fumble against Oklahoma, and then a few plays later on special teams, had the injury. So now without Derek Williams, we're lighter in the safety. So we know Jelani McDonald and Michael Taft will be back there. We know Michael Taft will come down and hit someone hard. So that if he can get, just like he did in Michigan, come down and get those first one or two hard hits, and then they get, they're intimidated to go at you again. So you got to set the tone, right? So then we know John A. Barron.
Excuse me.
Oh yeah. John A. Barron, he's the versatile king. Talk about him flying up draft boards. He can help at safety too. He can help nickel. Like, he can help a lot of places. So fortunately, they're going to be able to show more things they haven't shown before. This is a different style offense because they do have a true dual threat quarterback here. So I think the versatility helps what they can disguise, and he's just so experienced, Pavia. I mean, going in tomorrow, I can't believe we're saying this, but they have the quarterback that's on fire right now. Compared to Texas, that has a quarterback that needs to get some confidence, get his confidence back. Elite level, elite top. We started the season as, if not one of the best quarterbacks coming in, and Quinn is dropping down NFL boards and out of the top Heisman. After Michigan, he was number one in the Heisman. Now you can't even see him in the top 10. And we won back up there.
Brian over here.
He's had
Go ahead. Sorry.
he's had opportunities for Heisman moments. Oklahoma could have been a Heisman moment. at home against Georgia with most watched game of the year, could have been a Heisman moment. So that aside, now he just needs to get back on track and worry about, not that he's worried about the Heisman, but now he just needs to get back, the whole team needs to refocus, because like they said, everything's still ahead of them.
Yeah.
And fortunately, this defense is still number one in the country in points allowed and efficiency defense, still the best in the country. The versatile and overall healthy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, Derek Williams is out.
And Makuba is questionable.
Yeah. Another safety, right? That's why I was talking about Jelani McDonald probably playing there. So that hurts, but
that versatility is really
the communication is still there between the DBs and the safeties. So I think, and then the pressure, like I think Texas is the best edges. Like I think they'll be able to contain Pavia, hopefully, and get some pressure and maybe give him some looks he hasn't seen, make him have to work for it. And just like they want to play the clock game, just like Mississippi State did, they want to play that clock game. Well, all right.
Yeah, I agree. We get a quick shout out. We got some royalty in the chat room right now. We appreciate it. We've got Dr. Jock Finkley in there. Hi, guys. We appreciate y'all. The Finkleys are on the way. They are getting here to come up for the game.
Mama Fink is on the road. Yes.
I love it. So
yes, they're meeting. The Finkleys are meeting, and we're all going dancing tonight.
We are. So, I think that's a good point. I think for Texas defense to really show up, and again, like you're talking about, against an experienced quarterback that knows how to use his legs, understands how to read defenses. I think a key for Texas defense here is going to be use your smarts, use that versatility, and use your speed. It's going to be a game of having patience and understanding. Having patience and understanding where you need to be, staying home when you need to, being the ball hawk when you need to, and then using that speed on the edge too. I think is going to be a really important key for Texas. Can they get enough pressure on Pavia to force him into some bad decisions, to get to him, to get him a little roughed up, get him behind the line of scrimmage, and take away those big plays? I think that's going to be a big key for Texas. Again, like you alluded to earlier, at this point in the season, would you have ever looked and said, I expect that Vanderbilt's going to have a better quarterback than the University of Oklahoma? That's crazy to me right now. That's crazy to me right now.
Yes. They were so fortunate. They were smart to bring in the offensive, coordinator they did. And then he brought with him, his quarterback and one of his best receivers. So they have when you bring someone who knows your system and that you've developed and have a great working relationship with and you can communicate with, that's kind of like if Sark took Quinn or next year took Arch with him somewhere, it would be like, you're starting with an ace up the sleeve, right? And then you have someone who is as gutsy with a chip on his shoulder like Pavia has. I would like Quinn to be the one that when we walk out of that game tomorrow, Quinn be the one that put the team on his shoulder. It's a lot to ask of someone, but I think the team needs that from him right now, so that there's not any controversy, right? There's not controversy inside, right? I'm sure there's always a player who probably is like, man, let's take Arch. You can't. I'm sure there's somebody, but as a front, the team is presenting that Quinn is QB1, the staff is presenting that, and they're going forward like that. So
I love this from Trisha. Look, you're not aging yourself at all, girl. We were there too, but back in the Vince Young days, you could always look at Vince Young if he was dancing, you knew we had it.
Yeah,
I agree. Look, you've got to look at this.
Collected, having fun.
Look at the attitude. And again, unfortunately, that's been a little bit of a shift for Quinn. At the beginning of the season, he's got that swagger. Even if there were a couple little mistakes, he still had the swagger. He was ready to roll. And I'd like to see him get that back for sure.
All right.
So I'm going to circle back to this before we talk a little bit of college football. And then, of course, we'll come back and close out with Texas at Vanderbilt. But we alluded, again, started talking about it earlier. Worst case scenario, what happens? At what point do you bring in Arch? Do we see Arch in this game? Is this going to be a thing where it's on Quinn until? And if so, what's that until?
I'm going to try. This is kind of a reverse answer. I'm going to trust the Texas defense to keep him in the game for Quinn to get time to get going.
Yeah.
I would have to say it would have to be, in my opinion, because once they squeezed the toothpaste out of the tube last week, and they were able to put it back in by being open and honest about.
Sure.
He just needed time, and then they put Quinn back in, and that okay, that makes sense. And Quinn did better when he came back. They were able to put the toothpaste back in the tube, but I think if you pull Quinn again, you're making it harder and harder to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And I'll just say that. And I'm going to defer and trust Sark that if he pulls Quinn, he understands that it's getting harder and harder to say Quinn's QB1.
Right. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in some of the pressers that we've heard, again, we've talked about this. Sark is saying this is Quinn's team. He did say recently that Quinn looked really good in practice, having a good game. You know, he's making his reads well, looking good in practice. But again, this is my PTSD creeping back in a bit.
UTSD.
Yeah, this is getting a little reminiscent of some of the coach speak that we've heard in the past. So I again, in Sark we trust, in this team we trust.
Yes.
This is Quinn's team.
I'm trusting the defense to again
help out.
Have the solid plan, have the depth, and you know, I think they're going to be really motivated, especially to come and set the tone again, because they understand that. I think the defense understands that if it takes a minute to get the offense going, they got it.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna ride with the defense that they're gonna keep Texas just where they need to be, and then Texas will pull away. Right now, we'll talk about this in a minute when we pick our games against the spread. Texas is 17.5 to 18.5, depending on where you're getting your numbers. That's almost three touchdown.
Yeah, it's
a favorite on the road against a team that has this quarterback has upset three different teams with 20 or more point dog.
And
so he can lead an underdog.
And Texas hasn't met or beat the spread in any of their SEC games so far.
They've also given us ridiculous spread.
That's fair. Fair.
They set the number where crazy money goes.
But
right?
I'm still going to put it out. So
Oh yeah.
Look, I think this is a good point. He looks hurt, might be able to mask it in practice, but in game against Lions, more confident than OU. He looks hurt. I don't disagree with that. And
we got to trust Sark's putting him out.
Agreed.
He's ready to go.
We talked about this a little bit during the game. And you know, when Sark pulled Quinn initially, I was going, is he hurt? What's going on? Why is he being pulled? And you had said, I mean, he took that big hit right before he got pulled. And I thought you said that you saw him going in for treatment. Is that?
I don't remember which game.
It was this. We were texting about this last.
Okay,
game,
maybe.
Georgia.
I don't remember.
Anyway,
I'd have to go look. But yeah, we sit right in front of the treatment tent. So
right.
When it pops up, we see everybody, how long they've been in, who goes in with them, how panicked the people, the trainers look when they come out with.
Where are we at on the DEFCON scale?
You can see from the faces of the trainers if they're coming out like, oh, he just needs to pee, or if they're coming out like, go get so-and-so.
Right.
You can see on their faces.
Yeah. No, and again, like we mentioned earlier, nobody's fully healthy at this point in the season, right? You're banged up. It's a rough game, and you're in a big conference. So I don't
Quinn's
disagree.
Body language is going to show a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be something to look for earlier as fans. Look at his body language. How's his attitude? If a little blip happens, how does the team respond? How does he respond? What's the mentality there? I think is going to be very telling for Texas.
Yeah. Michigan. I remember at Michigan, the first 3 and out or so, he walked off like, we got it. Okay. They were kind of not laughing about it, but confident about, okay, it's cool.
Sure.
All cool. And so we felt, oh, it's cool. They did what they wanted to do. Couldn't finish, but that's okay. We're coming back. Never a doubt. And for the first time in 10 years, I was like, we're cool.
Yeah.
You know? And so even after this loss to Georgia, like we said, Georgia came, punched him in the mouth, took too long to get going. They fought back, but it wasn't enough, right? To me, still, there's, like they said, there's still so much football left to play, and they still have an opportunity to really get a run game going and that pocket presence going and things happening that we saw earlier in the season, get it back. And there's still a lot of football to play.
There is.
All right. So this is in the next hour. Thank you, everybody who's watching. In the next hour, we're going to make all of our college football picks against the spread. We have some fun top stories we want to talk about. You know, are people giving tours to the Cowboys and it's pissing off Dak Prescott? And a player took a really dirty hit. Now he's out of college football. He's having to step away. But we'll make all our college football picks against the spread. And then we will finish with our Texas wrap up again and our predictions for the score predictions for the game.
And some crazy predictions.
We always have crazy, bold predictions, something wild that's going to happen in the game. If you have a bold prediction, let us know in the comments. Megan, first we're going to share Chuck's Rockin' Ranch.
Yeah, so we want to talk to you guys about the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. If you are looking for a wonderful Texas getaway, even if it's for a visit to the Hill Country, if you're in town for a game, if you've got some events to spend out in that Hill Country or in the Austin area, you've got to check out the Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. It is located on 120 acres in beautiful Blanco. The home sleeps up to 14 people with one primary home and 2 fully furnished cabins. It is phenomenal for wildlife watching, fishing. There's longhorns on the property. You guys can actually meet our longhorns. You can feed them. You can interact with them. It's a great time. And you are only 5 minutes from downtown Blanco with breweries, eateries, shopping, and more. So again, if you're looking for a getaway, if it's for game day, or you just need a little staycation in the hill country, please check out Rockin' Diamond S Ranch. That is rockindiamondsranch.com, or you can ask for Chuck Smith at 512-694-1969.
All right, good job. And here on the screen, if you want to screen capture that, there is the contact info for Diamond S Ranch. All right, beautiful property.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
Book a little family vacay there.
We go out. I check on the Longhorns quite often, so it's fun for those that are just joining us. We've got some Longhorns out there. I got about 9 Longhorns. They've all got their personalities, but they love you. They're like grass puppies. So if you want to interact with Texas livestock,
you can feed them treats, take pictures,
pet them, scratch them. It's a great opportunity and really family friendly. So. All right. Well, jumping in, let's talk a little college football.
All right. So let's talk broader picture of college football. So this weekend is a big weekend, but let's start with, so far right now, there's the latest odds to make the playoffs. Let's share that real quick and I'll share the screen. Odds to make the playoffs. Right now, it looks like Georgia has the highest odds after beating Texas, Oregon, Miami, because they have a pretty easy schedule. And then there's Texas, right? And then Ohio State, Penn State, and we'll talk about who's Penn State even beaten so far. Tennessee's still in there. They have 1, 2, 3, and then Alabama. Four of the top 12 look like SEC teams.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about a crazy season, again, in what world would you have put Indiana above Alabama for likelihood to make it? Yeah.
And look at LSU and A&M. We'll talk about their game this weekend because they're both undefeated in the SEC right now. They're both undefeated. LSU goes to A&M, but they're still way down with the odds of making the championship. So we'll talk about that.
So I want to ask, look, you saw Miami listed way up there, right, with the third highest odds of making the playoffs. Do you feel like Miami is a legit team at this point? Do you feel like they're how do you feel
on
about
offense
them?
They are. On defense, they are not. Yeah, well, yeah.
I don't know. I'm still not sold on Miami. I've been saying this, like,
the refs, I mean, some people think the refs have helped them in a couple of the games, but yeah.
They haven't looked completely dominant. They got pretty lucky in a couple games. This past weekend, they looked a lot better. They looked more like the team that they've been hyped up. But you're right.
Not the defense.
Again, Cam Ward playing some crazy football, but the defense, again, let's talk about that complimentary football. I'm just not convinced that Miami has that. I'm not ready to call him a fraud because you're right. Ward,
not yet.
It is the Ward show for sure. But I don't know. That's a crazy stat to have them third most likely to make playoffs.
All right. Insane. Speaking of frauds, is it too early to call Liberty a fraud? All right. So congrats, Kennesaw State. We were all watching this last night, right? Because it was the prime time game of Thursday night. What was last night? Thursday night game before the Pittsburgh game. 5-0 Liberty they were 27.5 point favorites. They went into 0-6 Kennesaw State and lost. This is why we play the game. And we were watching the game. We had it on, and then I was even trying to look at like the box score to figure out how did they pull this off? Did they run it down their throats? No. Liberty had more rushing yards, more passing yards. Like they looked like they would have controlled the game. Kennesaw State wins.
It was a game of turnovers, wasn't it? I mean, it seems to me that the turnovers played a pretty significant role in that game.
I don't know. I need to look at like where they actually like the field position on those turnovers. Sure. But
it was a close one. It was back and forth for sure. But hey, shout out to Kennesaw State. That's why we love college football, because crazy things happen. Gotta love where it's at. So let's look up. We know we are in the midst of just the best time of year where you've got football on literally every day of the week up until I think it's like the end of November. So there's a lot going on. All right, let's show it.
I'm going to show you. This is Kennesaw State with their big win. Let me hit play.
Nope, just kidding.
We're going to think about it. There it goes. Is there sound? There it is.
Sit in the flat and let the games begin. Flip down, tackle down, ball on the turf, ball blown dead. Celebration part 2.
Rush the field, Kennesaw State. Do it. You can do it. Yes. Y'all can do it. Y'all were 0-6 27.5 point dogs. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's why you play the game. That's good college football. Let me close that screen that's still playing. They're still celebrating.
No,
Yeah. Where is Kennesaw State? Who knows?
No, it was a lot of fun to watch.
I don't even know where they are, but good for them. Congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at some of the matchups coming up. Talk about them a little bit. Look, one thing we know Friday we've got Louisville at Boston College. How do you feel about that game? Again,
No thoughts.
Louisville
scored what 45 or something on in Miami last week. So
Yeah.
they'll probably roll Boston College. I don't even know what the spread is. 17 points state. If y'all want to see the future Heisman winner,
Yeah.
at the running back at UNLV, you can watch that tonight. Actually, people will get to see it. That should help his Heisman votes. Rutgers at USC. They've fallen off the face of the earth since beating LSU to open the season.
Yeah.
So any of those games interest you at all?
I don't know. The USC is interesting to me just because Rutgers at USC is such a stupid conference matchup.
Let's fly from New Jersey to LA to play a game. Rutgers is in New Jersey, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That conference realignment is just bonkers to me. And you're right. Listen, I'm sure Sooner fans are excited about this, watching Lincoln, the downfall of Lincoln Riley. And again, USC is one of those teams that's shown flashes where you go, okay, they're finally getting their shit together.
When the first game of the season we watched together, the USC LSU, we were like, wow, they've improved. Look at the defense. They've improved. Yeah.
About that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. But Saturday, big game. Let's move on. So Saturday, we will be watching some of these games, maybe at the pub, the sports bar, the tailgates, wherever we end up. We're still working that out. There's so much to do tomorrow before the game.
There's a lot.
All right. So let's start with Nebraska, 5-2, respectable 5-2. Nebraska, 56-7 butt kicking at Indiana.
Look, I don't tell this to a lot of people, but I respect the hell out of the Huskers. I like them.
Yeah, you're vocal about it.
I like the Huskers. It's one of the best fan bases in the country versus one of the worst fan bases in the country this weekend.
Ohio State.
Yeah, look, I thought Nebraska would be a little bit better this year. So yes, is 5-2 respectable? Absolutely, especially considering how low Nebraska was starting from previously. Again, I think Matt Rule is the right guy for the job. He's going to get things turned around there. He's an excellent coach. I'm happy we don't have to play him anymore. When he was at Baylor, he had Baylor looking like a damn good team. I think he'll get Nebraska back there. It's just going to take him a little longer than anticipated, right? That was the absolute shellacking last week. And I think Nebraska is going to
56-7.
Yeah, look, I think Nebraska is going to come into this game licking their wounds. However, up against number 4 Ohio State in the shoe, woo!
And we have to mention Ohio State took that 1-point loss at Oregon. They've been sitting on that loss for 2 weeks because they had the bye week. So we know Texas has had to sit on some losses on the bye week, and they come back. Most teams will come back angry, prepared. They have the extra time. Nebraska just took a butt kicking. They're probably physically down. Ohio State's rested off the bye week and mad from that loss at Oregon. So, and they're 25-point favorites. I think Nebraska's in for another 56-7 because now they're on the road at Ohio State.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, like you said, Ohio State's coming in off that loss. They've been sitting on it for a hot minute. They're going to be mad, and they're back at home, right? And unfortunately, as much as I want to see Nebraska be back, they're not quite there yet. They're going to be licking their wounds. They're still going to be reeling from that. I'm not sure that you can fix all the problems that need to be fixed to go up against the number 4 team in the nation in a week. So, look, Ohio State is a 25-point favorite in that game.
Right.
I'm going to say they cover and cover by a lot.
I think they could.
Yeah. I hate to say that, Nebraska. We love you, Cornhuskers, but man, that's what
I'm saying. It's going to be another 56-7 kind of game.
That's right. This next game is one that you've had marked. You're excited about this one. Number 12 Notre Dame at number 24 Navy. Hey, look at you, Navy. All right.
Okay. Undefeated Navy, 6-0. We know the military academies are doing amazing this year. 12 Notre Dame. They're back up to 12. Nobody cares about that second we lost at home to Northern Illinois, I guess. So this is on ABC, and also this is still the 11 a.m. games. 6-1 Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 13.5-point favorites at undefeated Navy. And I'm going to go ahead and say, I think this Navy's undefeated streak comes to an end, but they cover. I don't think they lose by 2 touchdowns at home. I think they have a little more pride in that, and I think their scheme is still pretty good. But I'm gonna say Navy takes their first loss, but respectively, not maybe in the 7-10 range, not
Okay.
not 13.5.
I respect that take. I like your take, but I'm going to respectfully disagree.
Oh, I want Navy to win.
No.
My brother was in the Navy. Go Navy.
I'm disagreeing in a
Yeah.
different way.
Oh,
I
okay.
think number 12 Notre Dame comes in. This is a
And
case
whoops them.
and whoops them. Yeah. I think this is a case where Notre Dame is
Okay.
steadily improving over the season. They're
Okay.
looking better and better. Lessons to be learned, right? We've talked about this before. If you're going to lose, do it early in the season where it doesn't have as much of an effect. That was
Right.
an embarrassing loss that Notre Dame took early on in that season.
Yeah.
But they've recovered from that and they're climbing back up in the polls. And I think Notre Dame, again, is starting to show flashes of being the Notre Dame that we thought they were at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So I think Notre Dame's going to come in. And again, I like you, Navy, but that
So
win
you're
streak.
saying win and cover.
Yeah, I think that win streak comes in, and I think Notre Dame covers the 13.5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the big one. 11 a.m. 4-3. Oklahoma is going to Ole Miss 5-2. This one's on ESPN. Also 11 a.m. Mississippi. Ole Miss has lost 2 out of the last 3. They were undefeated. They lost 2 of the last 3. They lost to Kentucky and LSU, but only by a combined 6 points. So they're in it. They just couldn't finish. Oklahoma has lost 3 out of the last 4 by a combined 67 points.
Listen, as somebody who bleeds burnt orange, I am mad about it. I think Sooners are in for a long ride here. Look, we've been talking about it on this show for the past few years. I like Brent Venables as a person. I think he's a decent human being. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. You will not convince me, and he hasn't done shit to show me that he is equipped to be a head coach right now. I think Venables is still kind of struggling to figure out his place, figure out his staff, and I think he's struggling to figure out how to allow others to hire the right folks to come in and take care of the team. We already saw they fired their offensive coordinator. So OU coming into this game at a very good Ole Miss team against a very good Ole Miss team. Again, we're talking licking wounds. This is not the OU of years past.
Right.
They're questionable at quarterback. They're still kind of figuring that out. No matter which way you go, you got a young guy.
Yeah. Talented, but
behind
young,
center.
behind a struggling offensive line.
Absolutely. They didn't recruit well at that O-line. They haven't kept the big humans there. And they're not, it's hard to say, are they not scheming well? Again, we saw that their offensive coordinator was just fired. But this feels, in my opinion, I'm not saying he was the right guy for the job, but it does feel, in my opinion, a little bit like a scapegoat situation here.
Yeah, we talked about that.
OU has more problems than just scheming on offense. There's a lot. It goes deeper. I think they slacked up on the recruiting a bit. They're certainly not using NIL like we had expected them to. To that point, I do want to bring this up. This is actually something that former OU coach Barry Switzer had said. He believes that OU is in trouble when it comes to NIL. He said, in comparison specifically to Texas as well. This is Barry Switzer talking about OU versus Texas. Texas, can raise more money than we can. We're a small state. We've only got 3.5 million people, and it's going to be more difficult than it is for the University of Texas, where they've got 35 million people. A wealthier state and people to be able to support the programs. We'll have to wait and see. I'm kind of surprised. Listen, we know Barry Switzer is good for a soundbite. He likes to come out and talk, but this to me is a little surprising that he says just outright, Texas is going to kick OU's ass in NIL and having that funding. Now, we talked about this a little bit earlier on our show previously. OU as an athletic department is still in a decent amount of debt. They're not nearly as bad off as they were 7-8 years ago, but they're still kind of recovering there. We got in a little bit of a debate about the NIL potential. I agree there's a little bit of a false comparison there by saying Texas is a bigger state than Oklahoma. Well, yeah, no shit. But that doesn't mean every single person in Texas is going to be donating to Texas. I don't think that's what he's saying here. I think what he is saying is, look, the University of Texas has a larger fan base with deeper pockets. And that's just a truth.
Well, he compared the sizes of the two states.
He did.
Which, like you said, is not an equivalent comparison. Oklahoma, you should compare Oklahoma's fan base, alumni size, and donor size. Compare that to Texas.
Well, I think
comparing the state sizes, I think is like you said, it's a false equivalent.
But at the end of the day,
the point is made.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the point is that Texas has richer donors and more of them.
Yeah,
which I think is very true. So I think, we've talked as we're going through these predictions, we're looking at all this stuff that's coming through and these crazy upsets. Again, we're just talking Vandy upsetting Alabama. We're talking just some crazy games. I think this is part of NIL come to fruition, right? But I'm not just going to put it all on NIL. The use of the transfer portal.
Transfer portal's huge.
Playing into it along with NIL opportunities has created more parity within the college.
Which makes it great.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more fun. It makes it, you're kind of, I'd say, quote unquote, leveling the playing field. All of that to say, still, the big dogs with the big money.
The haves will still have.
Yeah, exactly. The haves will still have. I like that. That's a good way to say that.
Yes.
So that's one thing that Texas has done really well, and I think is a reason that we're finding Texas in the shoes that they're in, that they're wearing right now. They've invested. Not only did Sark, he's got his team, he's got his right staff, he's created the culture, he's building it right with his vision that he's had from the get-go. He knows exactly his game plan and what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's also utilized NIL and the portal really well. We've talked about this ad nauseum before. Looking at last year's receiving core, Texas lost a lot of players. Essentially, most of the receiving core was gone.
Right.
This year, we've got, in my opinion, a better receiving core with more opportunities across the board.
Yes.
So I think that's something that we're going to see. Again, we talked a little bit about OU going into this game this weekend. OU has not played that game well. And I'm going to revert all this to wrap up back to say, I like Venables, but in today's era, in today's day and age of NIL and portal, you can't just ignore those things.
Right.
You've got to put in a specific effort in raising money for NIL and also looking at your portal. OU had the opportunity to rebuild that O-line, to protect their younger quarterback. And also, how the hell do you let a player like Dylan Gabriel leave your program thinking that your true freshman guy is going to be a better option coming up when he doesn't have the support pieces around him? That to me is indicative of the deeper problems that OU has at the head level, at the highest level head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And Venables might be in trouble here. So yeah, look, I think this is going to be another bad game for OU. Again, as somebody wearing that burnt orange, living it, loving it, I ain't mad if OU takes it on the chin.
We talked about they fired Luttrell this past weekend, and they're putting all the onus on, or letting him, like you said, kind of be the scapegoat of what the struggles on offense. But it does come down to Venables as the manager of the roster, how he let Dylan Gabriel get away. And we'll talk in just a second about Gabriel at Oregon and what he's doing there.
Mm-hmm.
So he let him get away. He put all his eggs in Jackson Arnold basket behind an offensive line that was not ready yet, right? A completely new offensive line. So it was just so many things that it just all snowballed into not the right. It just all one after the other. The dominoes fell, and they fell opposite his offense. And then he was supposed to have this elite defense, and they started strong, but they're not ranked high in every. Like they're not in. I mean,
they've been exposed.
They've lost the last 3 losses combined 67 points.
Right. That's not an elite.
That's
defense.
not elite, and it's not complimentary, right?
Yeah.
So again, that goes back to their offensive struggles. But Mississippi, Ole Miss, 20.5 point favorites at home against Oklahoma. Do you think Ole Miss puts it on them? We know all the backstories of coaches and rosters and all that stuff too. Do you think Ole Miss just puts it on them?
Look, you just said Oklahoma has their past 3, or they have 3 losses out of the last 4, and they've lost by a combined 67 points. I wouldn't be surprised if that loss by a combined number jumps up to 100 for this game.
Oh, shit.
I think OU gets shellacked in this in this game. I just think Ole Miss is a more complete team. They're looking better. They're looking stronger. They're still flawed, no question.
20.5 is
20.5 is a lot, but OU is just a bad football team right now. And again, you were talking about not playing the complementary football, and the dominoes didn't fall in the right way. Well, my argument is that's Venables' job.
Mm-hmm.
It's your job to put the right pieces in place so the dominoes do fall your way. Again, look at that compared to Texas, where we've got Quinn, who isn't playing perfect right now, and we've got on the bench Arch Manning.
Yeah.
That is looking ahead. That is being prepared. That's understanding what your future looks like, putting the right pieces around him, and also giving him the time to develop.
Yeah.
Again, to me, it is an egregious error as a head coach to let a player like Dylan Gabriel leave before you've gotten enough time and enough work into your next up and comer.
Yeah.
That to me is squarely on the coaching.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just is.
All right. So you think Ole Miss wins
and covers by a lot.
Yeah. That's hard to pick. 20.5 is a lot, but I could see them maybe backdoor covering with like one last score at the end or something.
Yeah.
All right. So 11:45 Arkansas at Mississippi State. 4-3 Arkansas at awful 1-6 Mississippi State. Beating Mississippi State is not anything to brag about. Arkansas.
It's not, but listen, I will say this. We've talked about this for those of you that have listened to the show quite a bit throughout this whole season.
Because we heard how, yeah.
No, I know, but throughout this whole season, I'm saying Arkansas for me has been the potential trap game on Texas's schedule for a hot minute.
Saying it.
And Arkansas is showing a little bit of life here.
They upset Tennessee, right?
They're showing up as the team that has a lot of potential, especially when they're motivated. We'll talk about it more as we approach that game for Texas. It's in Texas goes to Fayetteville to play Arkansas later in the season. That's when Texas fans don't get comfortable yet. But let me also talk about Mississippi State for a second. Yeah, they're an abysmal 1-6, no question. But they're also, I feel for that team. They came in against Texas. Again, they covered the spread against Texas. They've come in prepared. They've had proper game plans for all of the games, and they've played some tight games.
I love their quarterback.
Yeah, I do
He can throw the ball. He's what, 200 something, almost 300 yards a game passing. Yeah. So they're missing the complementary football.
Yeah, I think for me with Mississippi State, their record is a little deceiving given that they're in the SEC and they've got the hardest schedule in the SEC. I mean, I feel bad for them. They've had to take on some
Florida
big
might have the hard. Well, we'll see at the end of the season how it works out.
Sure,
but they have a tough schedule.
But I think 1-6 isn't indicative to the kind of team that Mississippi State is. I think again, I think they're a better team than their record shows. That's not to say that they're a great team. This one to me is going to be a really interesting
Arkansas
matchup.
favored by 7.
Yeah. This is an interesting matchup to me. I think this is going to be where Arkansas shows who they actually are.
Okay.
Woo, I'm going to take Arkansas on this, but I'm not positive that they cover just because of the way that Mississippi State has been playing and that they're at home. I think they're going to come with a good game plan. We'll see how that plays out.
All right. I'm gonna say Mississippi State wins this at home.
Okay.
I think they have enough passing game and it's coming together. I like Van Buren.
They're right on that cusp of winning a bigger game.
Maybe. I mean, they gotta win something. So why not win at home?
Bless their heart.
They gotta win something.
All
right. We're moving to the 2:30 games now. A couple of big ranked matchups. Let's start with the 20 Illinois at number 1. Oregon. This is on CBS. 6-0 undefeated Illinois at undefeated Oregon. So Illinois. 6-1 Illinois. Illinois lost to Penn State, and they lost at Penn State. And then let's talk about Dylan Gabriel. We mentioned Oklahoma. Let him get away. Over 2,000 yards passing already. 77% completion. 15 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. You'll take that ratio.
No kidding.
172 quarterback rating.
Yeah.
Efficient. His team, like leading his team, the kind of confidence, the Pavia confidence, the kind we want Quinn to get back, right?
Get back to
that.
Sure.
Oregon, 22.5 point favorites at home, 6-1 Illinois.
Yeah. Look, again, if I'm an Oklahoma Sooner fan, I am dying a little inside watching how well Dylan Gabriel is doing. Again, Illinois was another one of those teams that at the beginning of the season, if you had told me Illinois would be 6-1 at this point.
Illinois and Indiana. I told you they were going to be the best.
Yeah, right. It's kind of crazy. Now, again, Oregon is playing lights out football right now. I think this is going to be one of those matchups where Illinois just comes up against a buzzsaw, especially because it's out in Eugene. I'm going to take Oregon in this one clearly. 22.5 favorites. You know what? F it. I'm going to say they cover. I'm going to say they cover because they're at home, and Oregon is just getting on a roll. They are a tough football team to go up against right now, and they're getting better and better and better as the season goes on. So, sorry, Illinois. I think you hit that buzzsaw in Eugene, and this is going to be a painful one for them.
All right. I think Illinois is going to do more to control the clock. So I think 22.5 is at least three possessions. So I'm going to say Illinois covers because they're going to play that clock management game. Oregon will win, but probably more in the 17 to 20. 22.5 is a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Undefeated BYU. We never told you BYU was going to be undefeated. 7-0, number 11 in the country. BYU goes to UCF, and I'm going to call it now. This is 2:30 ESPN. BYU just went to the wire at home against Oklahoma State. That was a great game. 38-35, survived at home. The line has shifted to UCF, and I'm going to say BYU is undefeated streak comes to an end at UCF. I know they're only 3-4, but I'm going to say because they just went to the wire at home, now they're traveling down to Florida. I'm just going to say I think UCF has enough for them. So this is my upset alert.
All right.
Don't put any money on it.
No, I appreciate that. Look, I like where you're coming from. I respect the choice. I'm going to say nope.
Okay.
BYU goes in, and I agree. Listen, that game against Oklahoma State, I think, was a wake-up call for BYU. Okie Light is another one of those teams that had high expectations at the beginning of this year and has failed and has been a disappointment into meeting those expectations.
Sorry, go ahead.
But there's still a team that can fall into things and really mess things up. Again, leave it to old Gundy. He ain't going to win you a bunch of stuff, but he's going to do some crazy shit in between. So, look, I think BYU comes in, and I think that close game against Okie Light was a wake-up call for them. So I think BYU comes in. I think they put it to UCF. They win and cover by at least 7.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Another ranked game at 2:30, 21 Missouri. They are 6-1 at 15 Alabama, who is 5-2. All right, so Missouri, since they were 2-0 since that 41-10 butt kicking against the Aggies, they looked horrible. But those 2 wins are against Massachusetts and terrible Auburn, so we still don't know anything about Missouri after that. Bama, we know they lost here at Vanderbilt, 40-35, and then they lost at Tennessee last weekend by a touchdown. But they are 4-0 at home, so and they're 2 touchdown favorites. So I think Missouri is still terrible. I think they still have Jalen Milroe. They still have. Did you know he's 17 years old?
Oh, Jalen Milroe isn't.
No, the Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
Did you know Ryan Williams is 17 years old?
Crazy.
Did you know they have a receiver that's 17? Yeah, I think they still have. I think they can win by 14 easily against Missouri at home.
Yeah. Again, I think given where Missouri had been ranked early in the season, they were frauds. I think they're showing it more and more throughout the season. Alabama, for all intents and purposes, is out of the SEC championship conversation with 2 losses.
The championship game, probably.
Right.
Unless Georgia takes another L, LSU and A&M both take more L's, Texas takes a lot of things have to happen for them.
They're certainly not controlling their own destiny in the SEC championship discussion. But all that being said, they're still Alabama. They're still playing at home. And while I think they're going to show up pissed off because of those 2 losses. So at home, against the fraud Missouri, I think Alabama takes this. And honestly, that 14 points, I'm going to say they take it and cover.
Yeah,
Easy.
That's what I have, win and cover. We agree on one. Wow.
Look at that. Look at us go.
Okay, Oak State at Baylor. That's on ESPN+. Texas Tech at TCU. If you want to watch some Big 12 football, that's on Fox. Also 2:30. So 3:15 is the Texas at Vanderbilt. We'll make that pick in a bit. Texas again, 18.5-point favorites. We'll make those picks in a bit. All right, so 6 o'clock. This is interesting. This would have been interesting a year ago. Florida State. Last year, this would have been so exciting. Florida State at Miami. Florida State, their only win is versus Cal. And for the first time ever, they lost to Duke, thanks to the fighting Malik Murphys last week. All right, and then they're going to number 6 Miami. And you had thoughts on Miami. Their only wins are at Florida, and then at Cal, and then they had a pretty they've had all wins, but the only real one
notable wins,
notable.
Sure.
And then Louisville, they went toe to toe with Louisville last week and survived 52-45. They are 21-point favorites. Thoughts on Miami hosting Florida State?
So as much trash as I was talking about Miami earlier in this show, I still have to say Florida State
compared to Florida State.
Compared to Florida State. Florida State's even trashier, right? Look, Florida State, in my mind, is getting that karma that they ordered up. You ran your mouth, you talk shit, you're trying to sue your conference for being better than the teams that they allowed in. You're 1-6 now since that's happened. So actually, I think I
feel bad for the players.
1-7.
I feel bad for
1-7 or 1-7 since that happened. Anyway, point is. Look, Florida State's not a good football team. I don't care how you slice it. It is hard to find good in the Florida State team right now. Miami, as much as I think I'm still questioning their number 6 ranking, who have they played, and they haven't looked great winning, they're still going to roll in this game.
Yes, they are. They're 21-point favorites.
Yeah. This in-state rivalry, I think, is going to take over here. There's a lot of deep hatred between these 2 teams. So, at home, number 6 Miami takes it and covers.
Right. Miami
Easy
rolled
peasy.
Florida to start the season, early in the season. I think Miami is again a statement for Florida recruiting, right? This is huge
Right.
to have wins in the same year. Regardless of Florida State being a down year, you still want to get that dominating win on them while they're down. So 21 points, I mean, why not? The only question is, can they, even though Florida State is abysmal in offense, could they actually score points against Miami's defense? Probably.
It's possible.
Because Miami just gave up 45 to Louisville. So I think at home, not that home field helps Miami because their stadium's 100 miles from anything.
Yeah.
I think Miami wins and covers there too because statement game, run
Agreed.
Florida, we run Florida, whatever.
Agreed.
All right, 6:30 p.m. is a couple more big matchups. You have undefeated number 3 Penn State going to Wisconsin. This isn't so much a big like national media game, but is Penn State on upset alert. So they're only impressive win. Well, they have no impressive wins to me. They won at USC by a field goal. They get OSU next week, Ohio State next week. So are they looking ahead? Maybe we'll see. Wisconsin, their 2 losses are against ranked teams, and this could be their 3rd loss against ranked teams. But Penn State is about a touchdown favorite at Wisconsin. Do you think Wisconsin has any fight? Is this upset alert at all to you?
Look, between the 2 teams that do whiteouts well, I don't know. That honestly, this
Jump
line,
around, jump around.
this line surprises me a little bit. I would have thought that Penn State would be favored by a bit more, and I think that kind of speaks to what you've been saying about them. They haven't really played anybody to prove to have that statement win and to really come out with it.
To be number 3 in the country.
Yeah. Again, I appreciate the Badgers. I appreciate that this is in Madison, but frankly, Wisconsin is just not the team that they've been in the past. So yeah, I think Penn State comes in and I think they cover, but not by much.
Okay. I'm not going to call any upset alert on that. Penn State win. All right. This is a big one because this is the 2 teams because they played the most games and also because they haven't lost any games. Number 8 LSU and 14 Texas A&M are the top 2 teams in the SEC right now. 6-1 LSU. Remember their first loss was at USC, but since then they are 6-0 with good wins at South Carolina, against Ole Miss, and against butt-kicked Arkansas at Arkansas 34-10 last week. Aggies, they had that first loss to Notre Dame, right? We've talked about that at home. They're big wins. Tell me which one just blows your brain, right? They beat McNeese.
Yeah. Good for them.
They won at Florida. They beat Bowling Green. They beat Arkansas. They beat Missouri and Mississippi State.
Of all of those, Arkansas is the most impressive win.
At home.
At home. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't at home. It was neutral field.
Yeah.
That was
The neutral Dallas one. Thanks. Yeah. The neutral one. Those, I mean, you play who's on your schedule and you beat who's on your schedule, and they've done so all of those games. They've been 6-0 since that first loss to Notre Dame. And I know Connor Wigman has been in and out with injury, right? But he's only thrown for 718 yards, and he has more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that. And even if he hasn't played a lot, he has more interceptions than throwing touchdowns. What do you think about LSU going to A&M?
At the beginning of this season, I called LSU winning this game.
Right.
But we've also talked about this. I've said this for a while now. LSU is one of those teams this year that it's just really hard to put your finger on. 1 minute, again, we were just talking about how not great USC looks. LSU lost at USC. Since then, they've been on a roll, but their performance has been really up and down.
Right.
It's been hit or miss for LSU. Going into Kyle Field, going into College Station and playing, and I will say this, I agree, it's a weak schedule, but at the end of the day, A&M is still winning. They're doing a lot better than I thought they would this first season that Elko is coaching.
They are doing better than we thought they
would. Look, and Kyle Field is a hard place to play. And I think
it's an evening/night game, 6:30 p.m.
And whether either of these fan bases wants to admit this or not, I really think that LSU, Texas A&M, is turning into a rivalry. They used to play this on Thanksgiving.
They make cups.
Yeah, they do make cups. Aggies make shirts for everything. Listen, I think this is one of those, it's going to be heated. Kyle Field is going to be hopping. It is going to be a crazy, crazy atmosphere.
Okay.
A&M's favored by 1.
1 point.
1 in this game.
They're not even getting the field goal. That's how much of a pick'em this game is.
Right. So for this one, only because I'm stubborn, I'm going to stick to my guns and stay with what I picked at the beginning of the season. I'm going to say LSU wins this game, but it is going to be a close one. I don't know that we're going to get into a 7 overtime game like we've seen before, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get some extra bonus football in this game.
Yeah.
I'm going to take LSU. I'm going to take them in a close one, but A&M is going to show up, and A&M's crowd is going to be nuts for this game.
Yeah. Okay, so I picked LSU to win this game, or like thinking ahead earlier.
Sure.
When I thought they looked strong and improved, even though they lost to USC, and then they've been kind of on a roll. I think they have a little bit better resume right now than A&M does. But the reason I'm rolling with LSU is because in heated games like this that are going to go back and forth, probably, I'm going to take Garrett Nussmeier, quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, who is probably competing with Pavia right now for being the most exciting, team-leading quarterback in the SEC right now. 2,222 yards, 64% completion, 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I know he's had way more game time than Connor Weigman, so his overall stats look way better. But I just think out there, he's exciting. He makes things happen. Playmaker quarterback. So I'm going to go with Garrett Nussmeier on the road. And I feel like he's one of those quarterbacks that feeds off embraces the hate, right?
Yeah, feeds off the hatred.
Embraces the hate. And he's like the Aggie sway cheers are going to fuel him. So I'm going to say LSU wins that. And only because I'm going by who I think is the more exciting playmaking quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. In this game, you've got to look to the quarterback. And that's what's going to decide this game is the quarterback play. Connor Weigman is another guy that when he's on fire.
Oh, he was dealing against Missouri.
Right. He looked great. He looked untouchable. But we've also seen him where
you don't know which one you're going to get.
Right.
Just like Quinn, you don't know which one you're going to get.
Weigman's been in and out. He's been benched too. So I agree. I think this is going to come down to the most consistent and smartest quarterback.
Yeah.
And in this matchup, I agree. I'm taking Nussmeier.
Yeah. Along with all the extra game time is a lot more game experience. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Nussmeier and the Fighting Tigers. Tigers. Michigan State. Your Michigan State Spartans again at Michigan. Michigan's kind of fallen off. It wasn't the world-beating win that it started to look like in the beginning of the season. But they're only 4.5-point favorites to Michigan State, who is also not world-beating. So do you think your Spartans are going to go in and beat Michigan just like Texas did?
Look, this one is tough for me, right?
And if for those of you who don't know, tell her why you're a Michigan State fan.
Yeah, so my family, I was born and raised in Austin, but my family is from Detroit, the Detroit area, and from Michigan. And my parents actually met at Michigan State. My mom was the first woman in the Michigan State band, first and only woman in the band itself for that first year. And so while I was born and raised a Longhorn, and I bleed burnt orange, my number 2 team is Michigan State. So I got that Sparty love there. So this one's a tough one for me. This is much like we talk about the hatred between Texas and Texas A&M, the little brother complex, all that kind of stuff. That's how this Michigan State and Michigan rivalry is. There's pure hatred between Michigan and Ohio State.
Right.
There's that little brother narrative between Michigan and Michigan State. And this one is a lot closer than I would have thought it would have been, even though
I think early in the season, I would have thought it would have been a 12 to 16 point spread, 4.5.
Yeah. And Michigan State operating under a new head coach, they're picking the pieces up, and they haven't looked great throughout the season, but
pick it, girl, pick the upset.
But they're working on it. I'm working up to that. Listen, let me say this. As much as I want to say Michigan State, I'm going to say Michigan State.
Yeah,
all right.
That's
my upset. Now, it hurts Texas a little bit because it hurts the strength of schedule. Having Michigan State win in the big house. But look, I'm gonna pick it up for the plucky Spartans here. I think they're gonna win. It's gonna be a close one, but I'm gonna give it to Michigan State here. Who are you taking?
Michigan. All right. So here's. Speaking of who does it hurt if so-and-so wins, if Michigan loses, that would hurt Texas. Does Texas need LSU to lose, is asked by Miracle Martinez. Right now, Texas controls its own destiny. If the Aggies lose, then if Texas goes in and beats A&M, that will give them at least 2 losses, and Texas needs to have no more losses, right? Because everyone will have at least one. Everyone has a 1 already, except the Aggies and LSU. Yeah. One of them will have 1 already after this weekend, and then it just goes by who has 2 or more. So it's too much roundabout. At the end of the day, Texas needs to not get another loss.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, like you were saying, Texas has to win out, including beating the Aggies. To
control its own destiny.
Yeah, and we need, in my opinion, and in my burnt orange believing, we need A&M to lose as many as possible. All that being said, yeah, I've seen scenarios where it makes more sense well, not more sense, but it helps Texas if A&M wins out and then Texas beats A&M in the end. But unfortunately, I can't pick it that way for this one. So
I'm going with the better quarterback. That's who I think is more exciting playmaking quarterback.
Sure.
All right. So let's move on. 7 p.m. Kansas at 16. Kansas State 10-point favorites. Just so you know, Duke, SMU 22. SMU is at Duke. SMU has only lost to BYU. Duke has only lost to Georgia Tech. That's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
SMU 11.5-point favorites going into Duke. So I don't know. Let's say I think Malik Murphy, I think time's up because they're struggling.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
So let's just say a couple of top stories real quick, and then we'll get back to Texas football before we wrap up today. Again, we are in Nashville. This is our cute little Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get back out and enjoy the city. It's so beautiful here today.
Good time.
All right. So Westlake, Lake Travis, the battle of the lakes is this Friday night. Tickets have been sold out since last week. They had all these glitches for the students to get tickets. It was a big old mess. But don't worry, Lake Travis is hosting. Westlake is coming. So there will be blue and red with your red and black. Who do you think wins that game? Westlake has, for the last few years, Westlake has owned this series.
Yeah, look, you know more about this than I do. Just because I'm picking Westlake.
Westlake is the best lake. All right, Westlake is winning that one. All right. Do you want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys controversy?
Yeah, look, let's talk about it. As a lot of y'all may know, I am not a Cowboys fan. You are. You like the Cowboys.
I like the Cowboys. Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about how Jera is running his team and what's happened to the Dallas Cowboys and fan expectation. I don't think fan expectation has ever been as low as it is right now.
Ooh, no, they expect.
But this story surfaced recently about the distractions in the Dallas Cowboy facilities, and part of that, the Dallas Cowboy facility tours have come under a lot of fire with a lot of players talking about their time at Dallas and what's happened. There's a lot of text here, but at the end of the day, 4 or 5 different players have come out and said, look, and they're all with different teams now, and they said, look, when we were at Dallas, it was just kind of a distraction there. It was too much going on, and it had, you'd be they were talking about, we'd be working out, we'd be working on something, there'd be people tapping on the glass, asking them to do something or perform, And look, I understand that these men are professionals. I understand that, to a certain extent, they function under a fishbowl anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't imagine having to deal with hundreds of people coming through your place of work to ogle you as you're trying to work and trying to improve. That seems like it'd be a bit of a distraction here. So, yeah, just kind of funny coming up. Of course, Dak Prescott was asked about it. Several of the current Cowboys players were asked about it, and they said, look, we're here to play football. We don't notice it at all. While I respect and appreciate that, I don't know that I believe it. So keep doing you, Jerry, as a person that is not a Cowboys fan. It don't hurt my feelings. Keep it up.
Aww. Yeah, it is a bit of a circus around. I'm not going to say that the distractions that's causing the Cowboys to stink this year, to really struggle at home. But distractions are distractions, right? All right. So you wanted to talk about this story, the NC State quarterback, and I'll share the screen.
Yeah, we there's been a lot of talks about missed calls or misdiagnosed calls. Certainly, we saw that come up with Texas last week with the thrown water bottles. Did that give the refs more time to make the correct call in the end? Set a bad precedent. But recently, the North Carolina State quarterback, Grayson McCall, medically retired. He has taken some hits in his career, and a couple of weeks ago, he took a really, really awful hit to the head. Clear targeting when you watch it. It's rough to watch. In a couple of the clips of it, you see, his helmet comes flying off. It was that much of a hit. Wasn't called, wasn't reviewed, didn't get called for targeting. So not only did this hit, it didn't knock him out for a game. It didn't knock him out for a season. It quite literally knocked out his whole career. And you hate to see that. You hate to see, in a time where, medical concerns are as high as they've ever been, or at least that's the party line, right? You hate to see a play like that wasn't even reviewed for targeting, kill a player's career. That's just tough to watch. So I wanted to ask this, Rocky. I wanted to pose this to you. Is there a problem with officiating in college football right now?
I think those are two separate issues. Like we saw over the last few weeks, like it's people always will pick, oh, you missed this or you missed that. And last night they were saying in NFL there was possibly a big missed face mask that could have made a difference in an NFL game.
Yeah.
There's they're not going to see everything all the time.
That's fair.
That was
That's
an
fair.
egregious, right in the middle, can't miss it. And it is reviewable by the booth to go like, hey, I think there might be targeting. That kind of thing is when, if it's not even reviewable, then maybe you can say,
But targeting is reviewable.
but targeting is reviewable. And
Right.
it was obviously a huge hit. The helmet went flying.
I think that's my biggest issue with this particular hit. You see the player's head snap back and his literal helmet gets blown off of his head with that hit. How do you not even take a beat to go, maybe something is amiss here?
Yeah.
Maybe we should check that out and give it a second look. I understand they're trying to speed up the game. I understand they want it to move a little bit faster, but at what cost, man? That to me was just such a missed call.
Yeah.
And
But I think at the end of the day, that whether or not they got a 15-yard penalty doesn't take away that this dirty play impacted
Yeah.
like the rest of his life.
Yeah,
'Cause,
it's
you know,
unfortunate.
he's a quarterback of a college football team.
Right.
He has so much opportunity. So that's unfortunate.
Definitely
that it went
unfortunate,
that way. Okay.
well, we're always going to fuss about officiating. So
definitely do not throw water bottles on the field.
don't throw water bottles in the field to argue
If that
about
okay, we have to talk about because we brought up the water bottles. Something really hilarious this week was the joke that that they had put a net, that they had put I just found it and then I closed it.
it.
That
Vanderbilt had
that
put nets
Vanderbilt
up.
had put a net up over the student section, and for the first day or two, thousands of people thought it was real. And of course, here I'll share it. It says, breaking: Vanderbilt has stalled temporary netting at First Bank Stadium ahead of a match with Texas, and the visitor section is precautionary.
Well played, Vanderbilt.
Well played, this
Yeah.
person who had this joke.
To be very clear,
It was hilarious.
yeah, it's funny. I love it. I love seeing stuff like this. To be very clear, there aren't nets up at Vanderbilt. Y'all, they can't even get a scoreboard hanging by more than the cranes. Like, you think they're going to put nets up in less than a week? Ain't going to happen. But I love it.
Well played. And of
I love
course,
the
the
trash
comments are all people who really believe it and hate Texas. They really believe it and they hate Texas.
And
also their team has never thrown anything ever on the field, only Texas. But that was pretty funny. And then of course it took a day for people to be like, that was a joke.
Yeah.
They didn't really do it.
All right, for sure. All right, so we're going to cap on Texas. Of course, we're going to
Yes.
give our picks, but let's run over again real quick. Some keys to the game. Again, we're going to watch Texas 3:15 Central go up in Nashville against Vanderbilt. The on fire Vanderbilt doors here lately. So
Good
what are
wins on their roster.
let's just kind of recap the keys to the game that we talked about earlier. Rocky, what are your 3 key points for Texas in this game?
We mentioned it earlier. I need to see Quinn confident, up in the pocket, leading this game. I want as Quinn goes, like Sark said, Pavius is the straw that stirs the drink. I need Quinn to be the shaker that makes the martini. Come on, make me an Orange Cosmo. Let's go. Like I need Quinn to really be the leader. I want to see his body language. And then 2, I'd really like to see a run game going, especially on the road, to take all the pressure off Quinn, because I think they go together, right?
Mhm.
As much as I want Quinn to be up in there, I also need a run game to help him out. And then on defense, because of these injuries, Makuba and Derek Williams, and starting to get thin on that safety spot, I would love for just that communication in the back, that was back 5 or so, back 5 or 6, whatever they're playing at the time. I would love to see them just really communicate the safeties and the cornerbacks, because we just can't give anything. They're gonna make their space. They're gonna pick dink and dunk. We just can't give away the explosive play too often.
Sure.
It's gonna happen. It just can't give away too often. So that's what there's like 20 things, but I'll just stop there because I'll leave stuff for you.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Thank
That's
you.
very kind of you. Look, I'm looking for the O-line to step up and have better play this game.
Mhm.
Like we talked about a little bit earlier, initially at the game watching it, it felt like the O-line was just really, really struggling. And when we went back and watched, well, the quarterbacks, and I'm including Arch in this conversation as well, the quarterbacks weren't helping out the O-line much. They weren't seeing their deep balls. They weren't making quick reads. Quinn specifically, though, was second guessing himself, not having that pocket presence. But I think this was some give and take and some back and forth. The O-line was getting pushed around a little bit, which might have led to the decision making or the lack of decision making from Quinn
Right.
in there. So I really want to see the O-line step up. Listen, we got big humans. They're capable up until this point, up until last week. We knew that this O-line was the best in the nation. I think Texas still has the best O-line in the nation, but they've got to play like it. They've got to show up. And again, against Vanderbilt, this is not to knock the Commodores. It's not to be, ugly about anything. But at the end of the day, that D-line for Vanderbilt is not going to be the same as Georgia. So this is a good opportunity for the Texas O-line to come in, enforce their will, give the quarterback some time, let Quinn make those reads, let him feel a little more confident, and protect him. I think that's going to be really key to this too. Also, I agree. Let's talk about defense a little bit. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
The defense has been really impressive. They've stepped up. They've played the way that they needed to. They kept Texas in that game against Georgia. I think that what I want to expound on that with the defense is create turnovers. Keep doing that. Again, Texas got some turnovers against Georgia. It just our offense wasn't doing any favors to capitalize on that. So keep doing that. Win that turnover field. Make sure that they're just shutting everybody down. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, we know that Pavia has the ability to run. He's smart. He understands how to see the field, and he can use his legs when he needs to, and he can be really, really dangerous there. So have that discipline, understand your lanes, protect, stay home when you need to, then use the speed on the edge to really cause them havoc and get to the quarterback, contain them and get to them. I think that's going to be key for this game. I also want to say this. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. We haven't been talking about it a whole lot, but I'm going to keep talking about it. Special teams has got to step up for Texas. Texas has got to win again, we talked about the field position. Again, that was a problem last game against Georgia. A lot of that was because of turnovers. Georgia was playing with a short field. The defense stepped up when they could, but at a certain point, you just can't give up that
Not
yardage.
complimentary, right?
The special teams, in my opinion, we've had some questions there. We need to see consistent longer kicks from our punter. We need to reduce the amount of punts, which again, against Vanderbilt, I think is a possibility if
That's a good point.
if our offense steps up. And I'd like to see more explosive plays. We haven't quite broken that. We've been so close. Texas has been so close to breaking that big play on special teams. What concerns me a little is it seems like we've been playing too shallow for a lot of the games. I'm too often seeing our receivers having to run back and catch the ball over their shoulders or make a decision.
Scary catches.
When you're not, when you're not in a good
He catches
position.
them, but it's scary.
But it's also, it's scary, and it's not putting you in a good position to then go forward and make that explosive play. We saw the speed. Texas has the speed. Silas is a fast dude. But when you're chasing the ball down and then having to re-gauge everything, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. So I'd really like to see better play, smarter play out of special teams for Texas. So those are my three things there.
All right. So you mentioned Pavia being a legit dual threat. He leads the team in rushing yards, 470 rushing yards. The next one is a running back with 380. So he is legit their leading rusher. All right, let's make some fun, bold predictions about this game. I'll start with who I think are going to be my two offensive players of the game, who I think are going to shine tomorrow, and then you give your two offensive ones. I'm going.
Are these bold predictions or are these players
like
of the
who's
game?
going to lead? I'm going to make my bold prediction. Who's going to lead in all-purpose yards?
Okay.
I have Jaden Blue.
Okay.
Who's going to lead in just receiving yards? I have Ryan Wingo. I think it's a Wingo game.
I like it.
What do you have?
I don't disagree with that because Bond is still kind of questionable on that ankle. We don't know how healthy he is. And Wingo is due for a breakout game. He was, again, we've talked about this earlier. Texas has a plethora of weapons on the offense, certainly in that wide receiver room. And even though Texas is a little bit banged up there, there's still an opportunity. We've got the speed, we've got size in a lot of guys, and we've got the schemes, right? So I agree. I think Wingo is up for.
I think he's got yak in him tomorrow.
Yeah,
because he's going to be in space.
I appreciate that. Now, even though you picked Blue,
yes, all purpose. I think I'm going to go like combining his receiving and rushing.
All right,
I think Blue's going to have a good game.
I think Blue's
needs a good game.
I think Blue's going to have a good game. I love to see Wisner step up, but we know that ankle is still a little bit sore for him.
Limited, yeah.
I'm going to say that
be limited.
This is a game for Gunnar Helm. I love Gunnar Helm so much. I think we've seen him hurdle over people. We've seen him play smash mouth football. We've seen him make really smart and really impressive plays. I think this is a game where Gunnar Helm really has a breakout and shows up again, because we're trying to get that confidence back with Quinn. Gunnar Helm's a safe guy to go to. He's a big body out there.
Yeah.
He can play that smash mouth football, but he's got good hands too.
Great
Yeah, we
hands.
saw a few little mishaps
Great
against
hands.
Georgia, but I think he rebounds here. So I think Gunnar
Yeah.
Helm has a really big game here
Yeah.
as well.
All right,
As-
I'll let you go first on defense.
Okay.
Who are going to be your stars? Like, who's going to shine? Bold
Yeah.
prediction.
I don't know that this is a bold prediction in
Okay.
any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to say that Jahdae Barron really shows up. He's been leading this team. He's taken the announcement here. Sorry, y'all. We've got the dogs getting fussy in the background. Yeah, he's really, to me, he's become such a leader. This is his defense, right? So yeah, I think Jahdae Barron has, as we talked about a little bit earlier, he's skyrocketing on those draft predictions. Projections. I think this is Jahdae Barron. He's going to be all over the field. And like we talked about earlier, we're going to see that versatility out of him. I really think Jahdae has a killer game here, and you're going to see him giving a lot of different looks. There's my bold prediction. Ton of different looks. He's going to have a bold prediction.
Lead the team in tackles.
He's going to lead the team in tackles and tackles for loss.
Dang.
That's it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm sticking with Anthony Hill leading the team in tackles. I think this is a game where he and LaFau are going to team up again to keep the quarterback guessing where the pressure's coming from, where the contain is coming from. So I'm gonna say Hill leads the team in tackles again.
All
right. Do you have any fun, crazy, wacky bold predictions? Is there going to be a pick six? Is there going to be?
I think my crazy bold prediction for the game here. I was just harping on it, so I'm going to speak it into existence.
Ooh.
I think Texas has an explosive play on special teams, and we finally see a return for a touchdown.
Wow.
So that's my bold
Hunter,
prediction.
take or one of them.
I'm going to call it.
One of them.
We'll take one of them, but I'm going to, you know what? F it. Let's call it. I'm going to call it on a punt.
Okay,
Texas
yeah.
returns
You have more
and-
chance of a punt because you have a better field position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Punt return. Good. I'm going to go that we get a pick six in this game.
Okay.
I like it.
I
mean,
like
why
that
not?
too.
We've gotten the interceptions and we've almost brought them back. Pretty close. Jahdae almost brought one back last week. I'm going to say we get a pick six.
Okay. I like it. All right. So we're going to do our final scores now.
Okay.
Rocky, you go first. What you got? Final score. Texas at Vanderbilt.
I'm going to say halftime. It's close.
Okay.
I believe that Texas will have to keep adjusting against Pavia, but I think they will have more to keep confusing, bringing in more options to keep bringing in. But I think Quinn will get rolling once he figures out what they're doing. And I think I'm going to trust Stark's adjustments and PK's adjustments in this game. I'm going to say it's close at halftime, maybe 15-12 kind of game at halftime.
All right.
I know. Maybe
love that.
15-10.
All right.
I don't know, 16-10, something like that at halftime. But I'm going to say Texas pulls away. I'm going to say it's going to be like a 38-20.
Okay. All
So
right.
just under no cover if you're going by 18.5.
All right.
38-20.
Again, Texas with that 18.5. I think this is a rebound game for Texas. I think, again, I would agree a little bit early on. We see some, just because Quinn hasn't shown the confidence that he had in games before, but I think he gets that back here. So I think it's a little bit closer. I'm going to just say in the first quarter, but I think the offense starts to roll and the defense does enough. I think we're going to see the defense make a difference early, maybe even get those points early on and get some explosive plays. So I say Texas rolls in this one. I think they win and cover. I'm going to put Texas tickling the 40s. So I'm going to say 42. Yeah, I'm going to say Texas 42. I'm going to say Texas 42, and I'm going to put Vandy. I'm giving you credit at home, Vandy. Some love here. I'm going to say Vandy 24. I'm going to cover it. No, I'm going to cover it. Sorry, I'm going to take that down. 17. Vandy 17.
Woo!
Yeah, look, I think
took away a touchdown.
I did take a touchdown away. But again, I'm going to say this because Texas defense, I just don't think that Vandy is, again, I respect everything Vandy's done.
42-17.
42-17, why not?
I mean, that would be really nice.
Let's go big here.
Really nice. They're going to need those nets up.
Put those nets up, right?
They're going to need those nets up.
All right, y'all. Thank you again for joining us. Please be sure that you like and subscribe. We are Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube, on Instagram and X or Twitter. We are Fire the Cannon and the #1. We truly appreciate y'all being here. We hope to see you out in Nashville. Again, hit us up on Twitter. Let us know where you're going to be. We'll be out and about looking for you. Until then,
line dancing tonight.
Heck yeah, we are. All right. Until then, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon. Hook 'em, y'all.